Chen Chu Pei was devoted to his family, but his fate was far more tragic than she could have imagined. And so, the ruthless author of the manhua decides to kill off his favorite character. All the fans are horrified, and the girl is no exception. At this point, she is overcome by depression. How is it possible that her favorite hero has such a sad fate? She cannot accept such an ending. For the first time in her life, she decides to express her anger in a comment. The pain was so strong that she could not remain silent. However, she paid for her words. The girl unexpectedly found herself in the center of events of the manhua, becoming the heroine, Lu Minye. She was sure that the author had decided to take revenge on her for her comment by cursing her and dragging her into this world where she became part of history. And now, she is here in this manhua, and she is about to meet her beloved Chu Pei Chick. This is real happiness. Despite all the surprise and shock, she decided that there is always room for unexpected happiness in life, even in the strangest situations. She promised herself that she would save Chu Pei. She would protect him from all troubles, including the betrayal of a cruel tyrant. She plans to escape from the Lu family. She feels incredibly hungry. She would like to eat an elephant she hasn't eaten for so long. In the original story, Lu Minye was an unwanted daughter who was always humiliated by her family, not even giving her enough food. Suddenly, she felt a pleasant smell from her right side and realized that there was a chance to at least satisfy her hunger a little. There stood Lu Weiqing, her evil sister, who was used to humiliating Min Ye. She brought food to humiliate her even more. Lu Yuexing is the arrogant and narcissistic daughter of the Lu family. She was the only legitimate daughter and believed that the entire world was under her control. Minya had been humiliated by this girl since childhood, pretending to be a fool in order to somehow protect herself. However, when she saw the food, her joy knew no bounds. At least something tasty in this terrible world. But of course, Lu Yueqing couldn't just give away the food without adding her own dose of humiliation. She offered the spoiled mantou. Yueqing demanded that Min Ye eat them, saying that it was the only food she could offer her. The maid tried to warn her that the food might be dangerous, but Min Ye didn't say anything. She was already used to it. Min Ye continued to play the fool, knowing full well that she could throw away this disgusting food when everyone's back was turned. Yue King insisted that she eat the mantou quickly, not even trying to hide her mockery. Min Ye took the mantou and was surprised to notice that the cake was so hard that it could break a tooth. It was a real weapon. The mantou was harder than Lu Yueqing's head itself. She almost split it, unable to withstand the blow. Minye was completely shocked. Why would her sister do such a thing? But the maid immediately ran over when she noticed the bump on Yueqing's head. Minye couldn't help but walk over to her sister and pour those rotten mantou into her mouth, making Yueqing feel that it was really terrible. Yueqing was indignant and shouted that it was unbearable, but Min Ye only smiled and claimed that it was very delicious. The maid was worried that the mistress had been poisoned and advised her to see a doctor as soon as possible. Min Ye just laughed, claiming that she was not in danger of being poisoned, although diarrhea was a very possible result. Lu Yueqing was loudly angry and threatened to call her father to punish her sister, but Min Ye calmly replied that she would not be a whipping girl. Min Ye finally decided to enjoy normal mantou, which turned out to be much tastier because she hadn't eaten for so long that everything seemed delicious. The girl noticed a dog next to her. An is a puppy that Min Ye picked up on the street. He is her only friend and helper. It's a pity that Lu Yuexing later drowned him in the river. Min Ye gave Anan food. They often go hungry, so they need to eat. They won't bully her anymore. She's not who she used to be. Well, if they dare to make fun of him again, they will definitely show them. After that, the lady ran out to her and asked if everything was okay with her. As soon as she arrived, she heard that Min Ye had brought Lu Yueqing to tears. Yu is Lu Yuexing's personal maid, the only person in the Lu family who was kind to Min Ye. She noticed that Yueqing would definitely complain about her to the mistress, and she would definitely be punished Even the fact that she was mentally handicapped would not save her. They will definitely want to settle the score with her, so it is not at all clear what they should do. She didn't understand how the girl could laugh because she only wanted to cry. Even IU doesn't know that she's just pretending to be a fool. This girl wants to leave her with problems, she won't get away with it. But now the lady came up to them with Yue King and said that now the punishment had come. In principle, they really did arrive quickly. The lady said that Minye is brave because she is my daughter-in-law, and she does not understand the difference between the upper and lower classes. She didn't understand how this girl dared to raise her hand against the eldest daughter of the main wife. Yue King burst into tears and said that she just wanted to feed sister Minye Mantu, but she suddenly pounced on her. Minye started acting like a fool again and kept repeating some absurd phrases. Yue King shouted at her mother that her sister was insulting her. This child is terrible. The mistress ordered to beat her so that she would not do this again. Sooner or later, she herself will destroy the whole family. Ayu fell to her knees in front of the lady and began to beg for forgiveness. She said that Min Ye was just a fool. She had not intentionally offended the lady. She was punishing her unfairly, so she asked to punish her instead of this girl. The woman couldn't understand how this stupid girl dared to open her mouth at all. Minya couldn't allow this crazy woman to hit her. AU. She ordered Agan and Adi to show this woman her place. AU said that no matter what anyone said, Min Ye was still part of the Lu family. But the lady shouted that she was just an illegitimate girl, so she ordered that she be taken quickly. They beat Ayu and shouted at her to take her hands off. And then they grabbed her, and the girl decided to shout at them to take their hands off Au. She didn't understand how they dared to offend her. The woman asked again what she had just said. Min Ye started shouting that she had tolerated their antics for too long, but she would not allow Au to touch her. This woman took her for a helpless girl, but she was deeply mistaken about her. The woman was shocked and realized that she was not an idiot, and noted that she had understood from the very beginning that something was wrong. Here it turns out that she had been pretending all this time. The girl had wanted to take revenge on her for a long time. Yue King told her mother that Min Ye had fire in her hands. The woman said that it seemed to be the power of a sacred beast. There are 5 sacred beasts in this world: fire, phoenix, golden, tiger, sky turtle, water dragon, and air killin. The 5 sacred beasts possess the power of the 5 elements: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Every state wants to get the people in whom these beasts are hidden. Although she still has poor control over the power of the fire phoenix, she can still create fireballs. The woman immediately ordered that she be seized and taken into custody. Minya told them not to disturb her and used this magic against them. After that, she said that now it was the turn of the lady and her daughter. The lady shouted at her not to come near and began to bully her along with her daughter. Minya said that if they wanted to escape, they wouldn't be able to. It was all fire, so the woman and her daughter realized that they couldn't get out of there. Yue King asked her mother to save her because she wanted to die. Min Ye pointed out that if they wanted to escape, there was a small hole in the wall just right for the lady and her little daughter. The woman got very angry and asked what kind of nonsense this was. It was a loophole for dogs. Min Ye said that she didn't have to climb if she wanted to stay here and become a roast pig. So the woman shouted that this girl was sick and asked her daughter to quickly climb out. But then the mother got stuck in this hole and started asking her daughter to help her. Yue King tried to somehow pull her mother out, but she couldn't. Min Yi noticed this and asked her dog, An, to help the lady. The dog ran up and bit the woman. It was very painful for her, and she started screaming. After that, she finally got out and said that she would complain to the master, and he would teach this stupid girl a lesson. And you now realize that this girl had just been pretending all this time. Min Ye said that it was true. It was just that she was bullied less, and she was just trying to protect herself. Au felt that she was very guilty towards her because she couldn't protect her. But Min Ye said that she had already done so much for her in the manhua. Yu was often punished by the mistress and her daughter instead of Min Ye. But the girl has the power of a fire phoenix. Since then, no one can harm them. And you notice that now the master knows that a sacred beast is contained within her, and this is not good. The girl remembered that now the emperor is searching for children with the powers of sacred beasts throughout the country. Those who are taken away turn into monsters and lose their humanity. In order to develop the power of the sacred beast, each child is implanted with a magical crystal and subjected to various experiments and tested with spells. However, most children fail the test of magic spells and become monsters. Only a select few can complete the trials. They gain the mighty power of the sacred beasts and become a deadly weapon in the hands of the state. In the original, once the head of the Lu family discovered that Min Ye had the power of the fire phoenix, he immediately sold her to the emperor. After more than 10 years, Min Ye went through all these cruel, bloody experiments, completely subjugated the power of the sacred beast, and then became the incarnation of the fire phoenix, killing many people and becoming a powerful weapon of the Xuan state. From these events, Min Ye spent her entire life in agony. Now the lady should have already told the master everything, which means he will soon come for her right away. So the girl said that she wanted to run away from here, and Yu was shocked that she wanted to run away. Min Ye said that she wanted to escape to the capital and suggested that they run away together. If she disappears, they won't leave it, and it will be dangerous to leave her here. And Yu agreed, because she also felt uneasy about letting the baby go alone. And Yu said that they needed to run to the south, whether to go through it, then along the arm, and that way they would reach the capital. Her sister, Yu, lives in the capital. She will take care of them. Min Ye was very happy because the capital and Lord Chu Pei would soon be in her hands. The head of the Lu family is Lu Bozhao. He was, by the way, that there is a sacred beast hidden in Min Ye's body. The family can get rich. The woman said that if it were just a little bit more, she would burn her and Yue King alive. This illegally born girl should not be in their family, and she should be driven away. But her husband hit her and said that now the emperor is searching all over the country for children endowed with the power of sacred beasts. It is necessary to hand over Min Ye to the court. Then they will not only receive a lot of money, but also receive a more prestigious title, so their family will prosper. Then the woman realized that this girl was a hen, laying golden eggs. The master ordered that a guard be sent for her. He would go to the head of the region. A little while later, the woman ran to the gentleman and said that there was trouble because Min Ye had disappeared. Presumably she had run away. The man was in complete horror and said that things were bad, so they needed to send someone to chase her. He ordered everyone to go in pursuit and catch Min Ye. The Lord would have ordered you not to catch Min Ye because there is a sacred beast hidden in her body. It seems that the girl was here because there are remains of her dress. Shu immediately ordered them to quickly bring the dog here. The dog sniffed and immediately went in the direction where the dress lay. Yu noted that they are in a bad situation because they need to offend. People are now persecuting them. Min Ye was shocked and almost choked. She was shocked that they came so quickly. Yu said that they needed to hurry because they couldn't let themselves be caught. Min Ye didn't understand at all how they found out about everything so quickly. It's just a curse the Lu family's hunters ran up to them. The men approached Madame Min Ye and were happy because they had finally found her, and she had made them sweat. They were the Lu family's henchmen, so she was unhappy. The man asked how she could run away because her daddy was very worried about her. Min Ye asked if they really thought she didn't know, because this old man was only worried because he had lost his cash cow to sell his own daughter. For the sake of well-being, such a man was not worthy of being her father. Shu did not understand what the lady was talking about and told her to return home in a nice way and not make him be rude. Yu took out a knife and shouted at him not to come near because she and the lady would not return to the Lu family. The man asked the woman, since when she became so brave. Not only did she kidnap the mistress, but she also threatened her with a knife. And Yu told him not to come over because she couldn't vouch for herself. The man didn't quite understand what she was going to do. Guys, she was just a stupid servant. He grabbed her hand and said that he didn't understand why she was acting like such a heroine. And you said that he should let her go immediately. But the man simply threw her on the ground and told her to get lost. Min Ye was very scared, and the man told the lady to be reasonable and return home with them. After that, a stone hit him in the head. The man said that he was bleeding, but Shu, you knew about it. A Yu stood up, grabbed Shu's hand, and shouted for the lady to run faster. He started hitting the woman in the face and yelling at her to let go, and Yu said that they shouldn't worry. Shu grabbed the knife and wanted to kill the maid. He crawled towards her shoulder. Therefore, Min Ye immediately decided to use magic. She screamed that she would finish them all off, but suddenly someone appeared behind her and hit her on the head. It was another servant who told Shu that he was surprised that she could make fire with her bare hands. It was really amazing. This is the power of a divine beast. The second rare power, it is not surprising that they will pay a tidy sum for it. Min Ye crawled to her maid and tried to wake her up. She asked Yu not to die, but it seemed to be useless. Shu approached the lady and said that if she did not want to reconcile the children, then he should return with them in a good way. He said that he would not let her go even if he died, because she was a monster. She spat in his face, so the man immediately grabbed her by the neck and lifted her up. He said she was just a bastard and didn't understand what she thought of herself, so he would beat her half to death. But suddenly someone hit him in the hand with an arrow, so he let the girl go to the floor. He did not understand who it was and ordered him to go to his forefathers. The man asked where it was ever seen that a pack of stray dogs would dare to bark at a master, and he ordered that the girl be released. Min Ye immediately realized that this man was Mr. Chu Pei. Min Ye hoped that this was not a dream, because she was very shocked. Shu, I understood how that bastard dared to hurt him. He would not receive mercy. The gentleman did not understand at all what kind of arrogant tone this was. They began to advance on him, but Chu Pei immediately took out his sword and easily got rid of everyone. Shu was shocked because so many people couldn't withstand even one blow from him. They were all a bunch of trash. But he decided that he would show him his power, so he launched an attack. A few seconds later, Shu was on his knees, begging for mercy. He was too arrogant and didn't know who he was dealing with, so he begged to spare his worthless life. Chu Pei said that he was just a pathetic underling. Shu agreed and even called himself a piece of shit and believed that the master simply shouldn't get his hands dirty. Chu Pei approached the lady and asked if she could stand up. Min Ye asked if it was really Mr. Chu Pei. The man was surprised and did not understand how the lady knew who he was. Shu was happy because he was just pretending, and this man just went and believed him. Now the master might just say goodbye to his life. Min Ye shouted at him to be careful. Chu Pei noticed everything, so he was able to react quickly, but the girl had already started using her divine beast power. The man was shocked when he saw this, and then turned back and saw that the man was already burning. He threw it into a tree to keep it away from them. Chu Pei presented the sword to his throat and said that he was a rat, and his shamelessness opened his eyes to his essence. Only rats like him attack from behind. Zhu asked not to be killed. Min Ye asked the master to stop. Shu was shocked that the lady was trying to save him. Chu Pei didn't understand why she wanted to save him, since he had just attacked her. Min Ye said that she can never forgive him, so she asks the master to put away his sword because this man killed her only family member, so she is the one who wants to take revenge on him. This girl has a strong sense of duty and justice. She has a fiery nature. It will not be easy with her. Therefore, she is a child who was also chosen by the sacred beast. Chu Pei had his daughter in his arms and told her father that she had the power of a sacred beast. Shu turned to the lady and pointed out that Yu was just a servant. They were not close to her, so he did not understand why he was so angry. Min Ye said that if Yu, who gave her life for her, could not be considered a family member, then she did not understand how someone who was willing to sell his daughter to the imperial palace could be considered a father. This was the master's order. He had no choice, Besides, the emperor was still searching for children with the power of a sacred beast throughout the country. The emperor ordered from that day on to raise Lady Wu Yun. In the palace, she has the power of a sacred beast, and the lady is a great value for the state. Xu Pei didn't want to believe it, because Wu Yun was not a national treasure. She was just his little daughter. But he had to carry out the order, so he agreed to it. Min Ye said that those who hurt her loved ones are her mortal enemies. Xu Pei believed that this girl was truly worthy of wielding the power of the divine beast. Yu shouted at the end that she shouldn't do this, but she didn't care. It hurt. Min Ye told Yu that Min Ye could rest in peace. Now she had avenged her. The girl did not understand what was wrong with her body, because her strength was completely leaving her. Mr. Xu Pei grabbed her in his arms and realized that if Yun was still a baby, she must be her age now. He ordered them to take the maid home and give her a proper burial. Min Ye opened her eyes and had no idea where she was. She slept for so long that she thought she fell asleep in the forest. When she turned around, she saw Yue Sheng and Xing Mu there. She smiled and realized that they just hadn't grown up yet. That's why they were so small and very cute. They looked at her face. She looked like this is a bit of a fool. At first glance, there really is something wrong with her. She probably ate some weird mushrooms. Min Ye then said that she took back her words because they were not cute at all. This won't do. If she wants to stay here, she needs to be on good terms with Yue Sheng and Xing Mu. That's why she said that she wasn't a fool at all. And that's why one guy said that he did it, that after eating these mushrooms, colorful toadstools grow on your head. The other guy was shocked and said that this was just cool and started looking at the girl's head. This is not the impression she wanted to leave. The guy told her to let him see if she had mushrooms growing on her head or not. Min Ye asked him not to pull her hair because it hurt, but the guy said that if the mushrooms did grow, he would bury her in the ground and water them. This made the girl angry, and she bit his hand. He was afraid that she would bite. Min Ye nervously muttered that she would bite him. The boy noticed that his little brother had been bitten by a fool, so he thought that they now had two fools. After that, Mr. Xu Pei entered the room. He was a little surprised and asked what they were doing. The children said that they were beating up idiots. Fu Zheng, who is the manager, sat together with the master, a girl and a guy. Yu Sheng asked his father why he brought this idiot here. Xu Pei asked him not to call her that because she had a name, and he wanted to call her that name then. Well then, he realized that he didn't know her name, so he asked her again what her name was. The little girl said that she was Min Ye and that she had broken off relations with the Lu family, so you could just call her Min Ye. Yu Sheng didn't understand at all why she was here. It seemed like she wanted to ask his sisters to come to him. He didn't need such a fool of a sister, because his sister is a Yun, and he doesn't need someone like her at all. A Yun is the deceased daughter of Lord Xu Pei. She also possessed the power of a sacred beast. In the manhua, a Yun was also given to the imperial palace because of her powers. In the end, she died tragically in the palace due to a failed experiment. Although the emperor rewarded Xu Pei with money and feudal lands, it is very interesting what kind of wealth can dull the pain of losing a beloved child. Mr. Xu Pei will blame himself for this for the rest of his life. That's why Min Ye came here. She will save Mr. Xu Pei. Min Ye said that it was true she came to become their sister. The guy was completely shocked by this and asked again what she was talking about. Min Ye asked the gentleman to become her father. She would be his daughter. Then he realized that this girl was very similar to his own daughter. After this, Xu Pei began to laugh loudly. Yu Sheng felt that this little girl wasn't that stupid, since she was so straightforward. Yu Sheng immediately said that he did not agree to this, so father should not listen to her. Xu Pei said that he understood him and suggested that they all go somewhere together. Xing Mu was shocked because ever since Au left them, their father had never taken them on a trip. The master ordered that a carriage be brought because they were going to Nanshan. The man said that his sons would ride in the first carriage and Mrs. Min Ye would sit in the second. She is so small and also old, and she smells something strange. Yu Sheng noticed what a mess like her is. This cart is just right. The man told Minye that there are different ranks of guests, and their reception is of course also different. All guests who are not of the highest rank ride in such a carriage. Xu Pei asked Fu Zheng again if he would really allow Minye to ride in such a poor carriage. The man asked the master again what he would order to do. The master thought that he had heard that she was going to become his daughter, which meant that in the future she would become the main woman of their family, and then he would be in trouble. Fu Zheng immediately asked for forgiveness for this terrible payment. He will immediately order that the same carriage be prepared as for his sons. After this, they mounted their horses and set off on their journey. The girl asked Mr. Xu Pei what kind of place it was, because it was very beautiful. Xu Pei said it was a sea of flowers among the clouds. Among the mountains under the azure sky, many flowers grow freely, and she can pick one and take it to her maid. Then the girl remembered a ewe. This made her feel sad, and she started crying. The gentleman informed her that while she lay unconscious for several days, he had ordered that she be buried with dignity. After that, he pointed to her coffin, and the girl walked up to it and put a flower there. Minye asked for forgiveness because she couldn't protect her. If she was just a little stronger, Au wouldn't have left her. Minye read that she was so useless, she should have used the power of the sacred beast earlier and saved her. Xu Pei turned to her and said that Au had rested in peace. There was no need to torture herself. She had done everything she could. She's just a kid, so don't talk like that, and she doesn't need to take all the pressure off of her. He just wants her to enjoy her childhood. If she wants to laugh, she can laugh. If she wants to cry, she can cry, and she can do whatever she wants. There is no need to worry about other things, because the master himself was to take care of them. The girl was in complete agreement that her favorite character was indeed a very worthy man. Yue Sheng did not understand at all why father was deceiving this idiot, and Yue Sheng said that it was all because of this that she was crying. Yue Sheng noticed that when he cried, his father did not hug him like that. Yue Sheng noticed that when he cries, he starts to throw tantrums, roars like a beluga, and also snots. If he were in his father's place, he would also refuse to hug him. Xingmu picked up the flowers and handed them to his father. The master said that he wanted to visit Yun and that they should play here. The children were of course not against it. Every time the father goes to the grave of his sister alone, he never allows them to come there, period. Yue Sheng asked the girl why she was pretending to cry, but Minye was actually crying. But the guy was sure that she was pretending. Minye had already started screaming and said that he didn't understand anything at all. She tried to keep you in order, no need to cover him with obscenities, but he again says that he does not believe her at all. He started making faces at her, so the girl immediately started bursting into laughter. Yue Sheng said that she was just a fool, and he knew that she didn't really cry. Minye told him not to do that because he looked like a fool. Xingmu thought about it and realized that his brother was more of a blockhead than this girl. Minye asked him to stop. She really seemed very sad. The guy said that no one forced me to pretend. Yue Sheng said that she wouldn't catch him, but the girl was very angry with him. Yue Sheng promised that he would immediately tell his father that she was pretending because she was laughing out loud right now. But the guy ran away and was sure that she wouldn't catch him. He didn't notice how he started to fall off the cliff. Minye also couldn't stop at all. Yue Sheng landed and had no idea where he was. A few moments later, he felt something hitting him. It was Minye. The boy screamed and asked what she was doing because he was in pain, but she was also in pain from the blow. Two men approached them and said that this was their road, and the forest belonged to them too. If they want to walk here, they have to pay money. Minye noticed that this bandit was somehow ridiculous. These bandits were so cringeworthy that it was simply shameful. The men asked why they were staring. They should get out of the way, not bother them. It would be better to go play. Yue Sheng didn't understand what kind of ignorance this was. They didn't even know who they were talking to. He was the second middle son of Mr. Xu Pei Yue Sheng. Minye thought he was a fool because he told the bandits about his high status, and it seemed like he just wanted to die. But the men realized that they would become rich, so they asked if he really was the prince's son. Yu Sheng said that of course it was so. Now that they knew who he was, they should kneel before him. Well, the men simply grabbed him by the arm, and the boy screamed and asked what they were allowing themselves to do. Min Ye tried to help him, so she wanted to use magic, but she was also hit from behind and caught. Yu Sheng said that he was in a lot of pain, so he demanded that these idiots let him go. The leader of the bandits, Liu Ye, was right in front of them, period. The boy asked why they were not responding and demanding that he be released. Min Ye told him not to shout because it would not help them. The man told Liu Ye that they were now rich, they had tied up the prince's son. Liu Ye was in full stride when he heard about this. The bandit also noticed that this guy was the second heir apparent. Liu Ye thought he was an idiot because he dared to seize the prince's son, and right now they could start digging their own graves. He was just shocked and asked what he taught them. The guys noted that if you want to get rich, you have to take risks. In principle, this is true. They even kidnapped the prince. They are really risky guys. Apparently, they definitely got rich. They were all very happy. Min Ye thought that Wang Gulyu, also known as Liu Ye, he is a nervous and bloodthirsty thief in the original manhua. She didn't expect to meet him so early. Yu Sheng called them idiots and said that his father would catch them all and kill them. After that, the chief hit him and told him to shut his mouth because he was a dirty boy. Yu Sheng was shocked because the man had just hit him. Even his dad had never hit him. Liu Yi turned to his comrades and said that he had just sworn allegiance to the emperor, and he was wondering what kind of punishment he should expect. The man asked what he was talking about, since according to the law, he was facing the death penalty. Liu Ye noted that this was very good. They now had two options. Either they would get rich or they would die. He noted that they would send the prince the severed finger of this youth. If he did not give money for the ransom, then they would cut off the second one. And it does not matter to me who he is, a prince or just a citizen. He must obediently pay the ransom. Yu Sheng said that there was no need to do this and started shouting. The boy cried pitifully. Min Ye decided to ask how much money they were going to ask for. They don't even know how much money the prince has. If it's less, it will be a loss for them. Liu Ye noticed that luck came so quickly that he didn't even think about it. He had never caught such a fat fish before. The girl asked him to simply name the amount. The man said that it was probably 100,000 or even 1,000,000. Then he realized that 5 million would be enough. Min Ye said that the prince would simply die laughing if he threw in 5 million. She noted that his sword alone, adorned with 7 precious stones, was worth 7 million. Liu Ye had no idea how she knew about the sword with 7 precious stones or who she was. This girl is so small, but somehow her words sound so wise. Another man asked if they were going to cut this boy. The girl noted that they were in the same boat because she too was madly in love with getting rich, and therefore asked how much ransom they should pay. She asked if the 5 million was enough to move and escape, and she suggested going straight to the prince's residence to get rare treasures. Liu Ye pointed out that this really made sense. Min Ye said that she could become the prince's daughter and thought of stealing the jewels from his treasury. But who knew that she would find allies? Yu Sheng, why shout that he knew she would betray them? The girl noted that it was not worth taking personally. This was a turning point. Liu Ye still decided to ask what her plan of action was. Min Ye suggested using this fool to lure the tiger out of the mountain. She decided to take his jasper pendant and throw it into the gorge. The prince will definitely send a detachment to rescue his son. At this time, they will invade the Jinwang residence. The boy demanded that she give it to him because the pendant belonged to his mother. Min Ye said that she knew the secret entrance to the residence. Liu Ye remarked that she was a good girl and decided that they would do just that. He said that these two should keep a close eye on the boy, and the rest would go with him to the Jinwang residence. Min Ye said that they would go to the top of the mountain and find a residence at the foot of the mountain. Meanwhile, Chu Pei was at his daughter's grave and talking to her. He remembered all the moments with her. He remembered how he said that tomorrow they had to go to the palace and he thought that she was not afraid at all. The girl said that with her father, she was not afraid of anything at all. Liu Ye noticed that there was a grave here, and another man told him that there was someone at the tombstone. Min Ye realized that this was her chance, so she immediately used divine beast magic. Liu Ye was very scared because he didn't expect this. They were all on fire and it was very hot. They did not understand what kind of fire it was, and the girl began to run away. She called for Mr. Chu Pei. Liu Ye was horrified this little girl dared to betray him. She would pay for it. He had almost reached her, but Mr. Chu Pei reacted very quickly. He asked with horror who dared to come to this cemetery. Liu Ye was simply furious and didn't understand what was going on here. Meanwhile, Yue Sheng asked to let him go, because when his father came, he would kill them all. The men laughed at them, saying that they were his fathers. Yue Sheng started screaming at them to take their hands off him. After that, I approached Xing Mu and asked if his brother was really some kind of toy for them. Yue Sheng was happy when he saw his brother, and they started asking who he was anyway. Xing Mu said that they seemed to have hearing problems and were some kind of idiots because he only said that he was this guy's brother. The man was delighted because this was another wallet on legs. This was just luck. They had to grab it quickly because his father would pay them even more. Xing Mu said that there was a 10,000 silver note on the ground, and he thought that one of them had lost it. They started fighting over this money, and then the brother managed to deal with them. Yu Xing asked her brother how he found it. Xing Mu noted that he simply lost sight of them, so he went looking for them. Fortunately, he found a clue. Yu Sheng was surprised and asked what he was talking about, and then his brother showed him the branch. There were burnt branches scattered all along the path to this place, and it looked like someone had left such marks. Only one person could do this. Min Ye used the power of the fire phoenix to deliberately set those branches on fire. Yu Sheng said that he didn't believe that she was so kind. She deceived them all, and she was a bad person. She got involved with bandits and went to look for her father. Xing Mu said that if they went to look for their father, then everything was over. But the guy started saying that nothing was over yet, and they needed to quickly save their father. Xing Mu turned to his brother again and said that he meant that it was all over for these bandits. He told his brother to calm down because their father was nicknamed the Divine Killer. These bandits already definitely regretted getting involved with them. Liu Ye was shocked because he killed all his men. He didn't understand how this was possible and why so many people couldn't defeat one. He thought that something had gone wrong, that this was all wrong, that he didn't want to be alone. Chu Pei said that he should screw it up for the sake of torture. Now it was his turn and called him a transvestite. Liu Ye got really angry and started yelling that he would just kill him. But when he started running towards him, he was unsuccessful because the gentleman turned out to be faster. After that, he fell to the ground and was simply terrified. Min Ye said that the gentleman was simply excellent. Xu Pei asked if the liana was okay and if the bandits had harmed it. Min Ye said that she was fine, but Yue Sheng was still in their hands. While they were playing with him, they were captured by mountain bandits, and they captured Yue Sheng to make him pay ransom for him. So we need to save him quickly. Chu Pei asked her to stop because it was too dangerous there, and she should stay here, and he would go for his son. But in the meantime, Yue Sheng and Xing Mu had already run to their father and were very happy. Min Ye was happy because he seemed to be okay, but Yue Sheng stomped on her and told her to move away from him, and he himself went to his father. He tried to tell him something, but his father just hugged him silently. The gentleman asked if he was really okay and if he had been harmed. Yue Sheng said that they did harm. They beat him. He is in pain. Min Ye said that if he told me about his noble origin, the bandits would not touch them. But the boy said that it was all Min Ye's fault. Because of her, they were captured by the bandits. They continued to argue about who was to blame for this. Xu Pei sighed, and Xing Mu told his father to look at the NATO he was holding in his hands. Xu Pei asked what it was and why the branch was burned. Xing Mu said that it was the marks left by Min Ye. He followed the marks all the way, and found Yue Sheng. Thanks to her, he was able to save him, and he also heard that Min Ye deliberately lured the bandits out to save Yue Sheng. Xu Pei thought that she was truly worthy of the powers of the sacred beast. She was courageous and determined, thought sensibly, even in the face of danger. He also noted that his son could also suffer. Xingmu only said that with the skill his father taught him, it was quite easy to win. His father praised him and said that he was worthy of being an elder brother. It was already getting dark. He looked at the others and suggested that it was time to go back to have a good rest and a proper dinner after a long day. Yu Sheng couldn't hide his joy when they got there. Everything on the table looked delicious, and he was sure that all these delicacies were intended exclusively for him. A joyful anticipation froze on his face, but his joy was short-lived. Yue Sheng looked around and declared that he did not know who this girl was, and therefore she should not stay here. In his opinion, her presence was unnecessary and undesirable. However, their argument quickly turned into a heated squabble, because the girl was also sure that she had a right to this food. She was not going to give in because some of the food belonged to her, which caused even more discontent. Xingmu noticed at this moment that the house had become noisy again, which had not happened since Sister Yun left. He couldn't help but think of the times when everything was different, and the silence seemed unbearable. Xu Pei, watching the scene unfold, thought for a moment, and then looked at his son, who was persistently taking food from the girl. He was not angry, but rather wondering whether he should intervene. Watching their skirmish, Xu Pei couldn't help but smile slightly. He found it a little funny how seriously the children took such a trifle. However, he knew that this time would be better spent solving important issues. Finally, he stood up and loudly announced that he had made a decision. Hearing this, the children immediately stopped quarreling. Their curiosity got the better of them, and they froze, waiting for his words. Xu Pei turned to the girl and suddenly asked her to become his daughter. Moreover, he asked her to take his surname Chen, which sounded like a bolt from the blue. Min Ye was stunned. She couldn't believe her ears, and asked several times if this was really true. Would she become his daughter? The thought arose in her mind that perhaps this meant staying here forever. This proposal was the fulfillment of her most cherished dream. Now she could be next to the master. However, his son, upon hearing this, became indignant and began to shout that he categorically did not agree with such a decision. But the girl did not tolerate his screams. She quickly came up to him, covered his mouth with her hand, and sharply told him to calm down and stop objecting to his father's decision. Her action was not only brave, but also quite funny. She even shoved a piece of chicken into his mouth to stop him screaming, advising him to eat his dinner rather than argue. Xingmu and Xu Pei just watched this with a slight smile. They couldn't help but laugh as they watched these two children try to sort things out in such an unusual way. Min Ye, falling asleep, couldn't believe that this was not a dream. She was now considered Mr. Xu Pei's daughter. It was like a fairy tale that she wanted to stay in forever. She wished the gentleman good night in her mind, but she did not dare say it out loud. A warm feeling of joy and gratitude swept over her until her thoughts dissolved into the arms of sleep. When she woke up, she didn't immediately understand where she was. The first person she saw was Xu Pei. This surprised her because it seemed that all this was part of a dream and not reality. The man asked her if she thought that by becoming the prince's daughter, she could save him from death. He mentioned that his family had already been destroyed, and now it was her turn to enter the game. It was Chen Huiming, whose appearance suddenly changed the atmosphere. His face was furious, and his voice was full of threats. He shouted loudly that she was finished. His appearance was frightening to the point of trembling. Min Ye woke up suddenly in a cold sweat. Her heart was pounding, and she didn't immediately realize where she was. She looked around, trying to convince herself that this was all just a nightmare and not reality. The latest events in her life followed one after another, and she barely had time to comprehend them. In the bustle and anxiety, she almost forgot why she had ended up in this world in the first place, and what had brought her here. Chen Huiming's name appeared in her mind like a dark shadow. She knew that 10 years later, he would become the new emperor. This event would change everyone's lives and change the fate of the world. His ascension to the throne will be followed by the fall of his predecessor Da Xuanjing. This moment will mark the beginning of an era of horror full of blood and suffering. Once on the throne, Chen Huiming will mercilessly persecute anyone who stands in his way. Innocent people will die, lands will be conquered, and his reign will go down in history as an era of tyranny and destruction. Min Ye couldn't accept this outcome. It was unfair, and she knew she had to do something. That's when she remembered the very review she once left on Auto Ru, which led her to this world. The world was currently in the 19th year of Emperor Da Xuanjing's reign. Min Ye knew that she had 10 years to prevent Chen Huiming's rise and change the course of history. She was determined to fight future tragedies. Min Ye vowed to herself that she would do everything in her power to prevent him from becoming a tyrant and to protect her new family. A fire of determination blazed in her soul. She swore to the gods that she would stop Chen Huiming. She was willing to sacrifice everything for her goal and save the world from the coming chaos. Meanwhile, Chu Pei trained with his son. He taught him to raise his hand and hold it in that position for as long as possible. This exercise developed his endurance and patience. Their work was interrupted when Min Ye approached them. She approached with visible excitement and addressed Chu Pei as Sir. This immediately attracted his attention. Chu Pei looked at the girl and asked again what she had just called him. Her excitement became noticeable, and for a moment she hesitated, not knowing how to answer correctly. Finally gathering her courage, Min Ye blushed slightly and called him Daddy. Her voice trembled, but in her eyes there was sincere hope that he would accept her the way she wanted. Yu Sheng, hearing her, only snorted and said that she was too noisy. He reminded them that they were practicing swordsmanship, and her presence was disturbing. Chu Pei, noticing the girl's agitation, decided to find out what brought her here. He gently asked why she came and what she wanted to say, pushing her to open up. Min Ye plucked up her courage and said that she wanted to study at the Confucian school. Her words stunned Chu Pei. He did not expect that the girl would express a desire to enter the palace. The girl firmly confirmed her words. However, the gentleman declared that it was impossible. He explained that he could not allow her to go there despite her aspirations. He added that her sacred beast power was too valuable to risk being exposed. He couldn't lose another daughter, that was clear in his voice. But Min Ye was not going to give up. She promised that no one would know about her strength. Her voice was full of determination, and she hoped to convince Chu Pei to change his mind. The girl explained that without training in the palace, she would not be able to save him. If she did not stop Chen Huiming, they would all die, but she was not going to let that happen. Chu Pei was confused by her words. He could not understand what exactly she was going to save him from, and why, according to her, everyone should die. Min Ye realized that it was time to tell everything. However, when she started to speak, she noticed that her words sounded jumbled. It was difficult for her to express her thoughts clearly. Chu Pei listened to her attentively, but not understanding. Asked again what she had just said. It seemed to him that her speech was incoherent and incomprehensible. Yu Sheng, without wasting a moment, sarcastically said that the girl probably ate poisonous mushrooms and therefore was talking nonsense. He called her behavior strange, not hiding his displeasure. Xingmu also didn't understand what was going on. It was hard for him to understand the meaning of her speech. Min Ye was upset that no one took her words seriously. The girl tried to explain that when Chen Huiming became emperor, he would kill them all. However, her words fell on deaf ears, and the master was still perplexed. Chu Pei's eldest son remarked that she sounded like a baby when she spoke. This caused everyone to laugh, but the girl could not understand why they did not understand her. Min Ye began to wonder why her words were not being understood. She guessed that it was because she was trying to talk about future events, which might violate the rules of this world. Yu Sheng suggested that Chu Pei send the girl away, adding that it would be too late once the mushrooms started growing on her head. The girl asked him not to push her and said that she was talking about important things. Little by little, Shu Pei began to understand her speech, and the girl realized that her voice was blocked every time she tried to spoil the future. This was an unexpected discovery for her. Deciding that there was power in volume, Min Ye screamed to get her point across, but it was no use. The only ones who responded to her scream were the frightened birds. Shu Pei didn't understand anything again. The whole situation was extremely strange to him. He wondered what was happening to the girl and why her behavior had become so incomprehensible. Xing Mu guessed that perhaps she had eaten something strange, like those mushrooms, which could have affected her voice or her perception of reality. Min Ye responded with indignation, stating that she hadn't eaten anything. She finally realized that she was strictly forbidden from spoiling the future, and this made it even harder for her. Despite all the obstacles, Min Ye decided not to give up. She began to persuade Shu Pei again to let her study. She knew that she could not deviate from the chosen path. Shu Pei, watching her persistence, couldn't help but smile. He even felt a little awkward because the girl was too sweet to refuse her. Shu Pei felt as if he was ready to fulfill absolutely any wish of this girl. There was not the slightest doubt in his mind. He could do everything she asked, and nothing seemed impossible to him for the sake of her smile. The girl couldn't hide her delight. Her eyes were shining with happiness, and she asked with slight excitement if it was really true. She wanted to make sure that her dreams could come true. The gentleman smiled, but added with some seriousness, he would fulfill any of her wishes with the exception of one: entering the school in the palace. This question was a matter of principle for him. The girl tried to object to express her arguments, but her father interrupted her. With a stern look, he made it clear that he had said everything he could and would not repeat it again. Her father had categorically forbidden her to mention her dream of studying at the palace. He considered this conversation closed, and reminding her of this desire only irritated him. Yu Sheng added with a grin that his father was right, and that fate had not predisposed the girl to the palace. He even called her a witch, hinting that this was not her place at all. But his cheerful mood disappeared when he saw the girl standing there in tears. Surprised by her reaction, he began to console her haltingly, asking her to stop crying. Yu Sheng earnestly begged her not to cry, claiming that it was unpleasant to see her cry and that it was completely impossible to cheer her up in such a state. Min Ye was at a loss as she pondered her fate. She knew that if she failed to study in the palace, she would lose the chance to prevent Chen Huiming from becoming a tyrant. Yu Sheng, having caught up with her, noticed with a smile that she had managed to hide well. He looked for her for a long time and finally found her, while jokingly reproaching her for her cunning. Yu Sheng also noticed that she had obviously skipped lunch. It seemed to him that she had not come here for privacy, but to catch frogs for food. Min Ye, still angry with her brother, was surprised to see Xing Mu emerge from the trees. He handed her some food and offered her a snack. However, the girl stubbornly pressed her lips together and replied that she was not hungry. Without losing his composure, Yue Sheng grabbed the food from his brother and resolutely shoved it into his sister's mouth. Yue Sheng reminded her that no matter how heavy her heart was, she should think about food first. It would help her gain strength. After that, the brothers all took Min Ye's hands and told her that there was a festival in the shopping district today. They suggested that they go there and have some fun. Yu Xing enthusiastically added that the festival would definitely be more fun than catching frogs. He was sure that this evening would bring them much joy. When they arrived at the place, Min Ye was shocked. She didn't expect such a lively atmosphere. There was a real bustle and joy all around. She was surprised by what was happening. It seemed to her that this was an ordinary evening market, no different from the usual ones. She did not see anything special in it. In contrast, Yue Sheng was beaming with happiness. He was eager to try the festive treats and participate in the games, so he immediately rushed to the counters. Meanwhile, Xingmu and Min Ye stopped to eat cotton candy. While eating, the girl quietly spoke to her brother. Min Ye sadly shared her conclusion. It seemed that she really had no chance of getting into the school in the palace. Her dreams were crumbling. Xingmu gently asked her not to upset her father. He reminded her that after losing his sister to the power of the sacred beast, her father might not be able to bear any more shocks. Min Ye nodded understanding that her job was to hide her abilities. She promised that she would never use the power of the sacred beast or reveal her magic. Her father had told her sister Yun a long time ago that no one could guarantee that the power of the sacred beast would never be used even if it was absolutely necessary. He taught that even in the most desperate situations, one should not rely on magic. It is too great a responsibility that one cannot take on oneself. Minya thoughtfully remarked that she didn't know what her future would be, but her only wish was for her beloved master to be happy. Xing Mu tried to calm her down, adding that if she was persistent and calm, she would be able to prove that she was worthy of studying in the palace. Minya confidently declared that she could protect herself. She wanted to show her father that she was not afraid of responsibility and could control her powers. Xingmu thought for a moment and then asked how exactly she was going to prove her independence and strength to her father. Min Ye sighed, admitting that she didn't have a plan yet. Her brother smiled and said that he knew how to help her. Overjoyed, Min Ye asked him to share his method quickly. Her eyes lit up again with the hope of realizing her dream. Xingmu said that their father had a friend who was a master in the army. He had mastered the power of the sacred beast at the highest level and could teach them a lot. He suggested training in secret mastering powers to use them covertly. For example, learning to light a lantern without a visible flame. Min Ye was amazed how could she forget that in the original children were trained through magic and their powers were transformed through trials. She remembered that in addition to transforming into sacred beasts, they could control magical elements. She decided that this method suited her. Min Ye looked at her brother with gratitude. She considered him to be the best, most caring and considerate person in her life. Xing Mu looked at his sister and thought about it. He remembered how his father suffered because he couldn't protect his loved ones, and these memories haunted him. He felt useless blaming himself for not being able to save his sister and spare his father from pain. This feeling haunted him. Min Ye, seeing his heavy thoughts, firmly declared that she had already made her decision. She was ready to act and was not afraid of anything. Xing Mu asked her in surprise what exactly she had decided. Her confidence was alarming, but he knew that she was more serious than ever. Minya calmly said that once they returned home, she would talk to her father and prove to him that she was able to hide her powers and protect herself. Xing Mu smiled, thinking that she was not at all like Sister Yun. Her determination and fortitude impressed him, and he was proud of her. Yue Sheng was sitting next to his friends, and noticing their stillness, asked them why they were sitting like that, as if the whole world had frozen. Then he suggested that they go somewhere to have fun, because he was terribly bored alone. Without waiting for an answer, he grabbed Min Ye's hand, intending to pull her along. But the girl immediately begged him not to pull her so abruptly. She tried to protest softly, but Yue Sheng still did not let go, smiling. Having reached a busy place, they stopped at a stand with masks. There the girl looked at the assortment for a long time, until she chose one funny mask, especially for her older brother. When he put it on, the mask turned him into the funniest person they had ever seen. His younger siblings couldn't help but laugh loudly, pointing their fingers at him. Then their attention was drawn to various amusements, catching fish, throwing rings, and many other games. In the end, they won a mountain of toys, which brought everyone to complete delight. Min Ye proudly showed off her catch, claiming that she had the most prizes. However, her brother chuckled and confidently noted that he had still won much more. The fun was suddenly interrupted when people were being driven off the road. Someone important was obviously driving into the street, and everyone immediately hurried to the sides. Soon, a gentleman appeared, sitting in an elegant carriage. His mood was clearly elevated, especially as he watched the crowd scatter in different directions, like frightened mice. However, the carriage continued to move, heading straight towards the girl. Yue Sheng, noticing this, shouted loudly for Min Ye to be careful, and immediately step aside. The girl only had time to turn around when her brother instantly grabbed her and threw her aside, saving her from danger. Everything happened so quickly that she didn't even have time to understand what had happened. After that, Yue Sheng ran up to her, excitedly asking if she was okay and why she was in the middle of the road. Min Ye, breathing heavily, also did not stay away inquiring about his condition. However, their dialogue was interrupted by a stern remark from the gentleman. He contemptuously called them two stupid rats, noting that they almost harmed the heir to the throne. Min Ye was shocked when she heard these words. Her gaze fell on the figure of the fifth prince, Chen Yuerui, who stood before them like the embodiment of thunder and majesty. In the manhwa, he bullied the main character Huiming, which affected the guy's character, and she didn't expect to meet him here. The prince asked why they did not let the carriage of the heir to the throne pass. Were they blind, or did they deliberately want to harm him? Min Ye shouted at him that there were a lot of people at the festival, and he was galloping along. He had no conscience at all. He started screaming that she was a stinking slum mouse and thought she could have him. It looked like she wanted to taste his window. That one it should kneel before the heir to the throne. She would love to finish this asshole off, but she can't use her Fire Phoenix power. She'll be discovered immediately, and it'll all be over. After a heated argument, the guy declared that he now considered himself her brother and would not allow anyone to hurt her. He sternly ordered everyone to shut up and leave his sister alone. The prince, surprised by this statement, asked if he was really that Yue Sheng, since as far as he knew, his sister had disappeared. He looked at him with disbelief. Even more puzzled, he asked where the other sister could have come from. The guy waved it off, saying that he was just too lazy to explain everything to him, and he was not going to do it. After that, the guy suggested to Chen Yuerui to solve everything man to man, to sort it out one-on-one, saying that his sister had absolutely nothing to do with it. The prince agreed eagerly, awaiting the outcome of the confrontation. He wanted to see who would be stronger and what this daring guy was capable of. However, one of the servants intervened, reminding him that Chen Yuerui was one of the heirs to the throne, and no one dared to raise a hand against him because it was unacceptable. Yue Sheng was shocked by this ban. His indignation had not yet died down before it hit him in the face. This was an unexpected turn of events for him. Chen Yuerui was jubilant, confident that the blow had hit the target. He proclaimed that this blow had won the battle, which caused even more indignation. The boy did not agree with his words, called him a coward, and said that only an honest victory matters. His indignation reached its limit, and he wished death on his enemy. Xingmu intervened, grabbing his brother's arm and demanding that he come over to him and stop his harsh words towards Chen Yuerui. Yue Sheng tried to justify himself by pointing out his opponent's arrogant behavior. He also reminded him that he dared to insult Min Ye, which made him especially angry. Xingmu, trying to calm his brother down, assured him that he would take care of it himself, and there was no point in worrying about it. He then turned to the fifth prince to apologize for the disrespectful behavior of his brother and sister, asking for his permission to compensate for the inconvenience caused. Chen Yuerui felt relieved to finally see a reasonable person in front of him. He noted that the brother and sister had almost knocked him down. Xingmu expressed his deep regret and promised to tell his father about this. He assured that the brother and sister would be punished for their behavior. Chen Yuerui, pleased with this promise, demanded that the brother and sister henceforth know their place, behave more carefully, and not interfere with the future emperor. Xingmu agreed and hurried away with his companions. His calm demeanor did not escape the eyes of Yue Sheng, who was struck by his restraint. Yue Sheng couldn't understand why his brother treated this man so politely, even though his behavior deserved a completely different response. But soon, Xingmu, smiling, explained that no one would dare to humiliate his family with impunity. The enemy would experience such humiliation that he would not be able to recover. Min Ye then realized that her elder brother was a true strategic genius. His plans were always thought out to the smallest detail. Yu Xing, infected with brotherly confidence, decided to find out what exactly Xing Mu was planning in order to evaluate his ingenious strategy. The prince stopped at a place that immediately attracted his attention with its beauty and convenience. He decided that it was ideal for him and ordered his guards to remove the boy who was sitting there, as he considered this place to be his own. The boy's father, seeing what was happening, approached the prince and indignantly said that he must be out of his mind to try to drive them away. After all, they were here first and were not going to give in. The prince's servant, noticing the indignation, rudely asked the man what he was doing. He said that he had no right to speak to their master like that and demanded respect. After that, the man and the boy quickly left the place, not wanting to get involved in the conflict. The prince, as if nothing had happened, ordered the cotton candy seller to quickly make him a sweet figurine in the form of a monkey. The salesman immediately set to work, creating the desired sweet for the prince. At this time, Xing Mu approached one of the guards from behind, intending to strike up a conversation with him. While Xing Mu was distracting the guard, Yue Sheng turned to Chen Yuerui, trying to divert his attention. Meanwhile, Min Ye was hiding behind the wall, preparing her next move. Xing Mu continued to talk to the guard, not giving him a chance to notice what was happening, while Yue Sheng increased the distraction so that the prince would not suspect anything. Min Ye deftly approached the prince's cotton candy and secretly added powder to it. Then, taking advantage of the moment, she also smeared some sticky substance on his chair. After finishing her actions, Min Ye looked around and signaled to her brothers that everything was ready. They understood without words and continued their plan. Yu Sheng, seeing the prince's reaction, declared that he was not going to talk to him anymore. This was part of their cunning plan. Xing Mu also apologized, saying that he had to leave, and hurried to join his comrades, leaving the prince bewildered. Chen Yuerui, not suspecting anything strange, sat down on his chair and began to eat his food. At the same time, he checked with the seller whether his sugar monkey was ready. The seller replied that it would take a little more time to complete the work, as the figurine required precision and care. While the prince was enjoying his meal, the seller finished making the sugar monkey. The prince reached out to take it, but suddenly felt a strong pain in his stomach. Chen Yuerui's expression changed abruptly. Barely managing to cope with the unpleasant sensation, he realized that something had clearly gone wrong. His servant, concerned about his master's condition, immediately asked what had happened. The prince explained with difficulty that he had suddenly developed a severe stomachache. Chen Yuerui immediately ordered the guards to take him to the toilet. The pain was so severe that he could hardly bear it and required urgent action. When he tried to get up, he found that he couldn't leave the chair. It was glued tightly, which only increased his anger. The guard assured him that he would help him now, but the prince shouted impatiently, demanding that he act faster as he could no longer bear the pain. The man was confused because the fabric of his clothes was stuck to the chair. The prince demanded that a solution be found, immediately threatening him with punishment. The guard suggested taking off his pants along with the chair to somehow free the prince. It was the best solution he could come up with at that moment. However, this enraged the prince. He believed that the guard wanted to make a fool of him by forcing him to walk around the market without pants, and he threatened to kill him. The guard immediately began to apologize, trying to calm the gentleman down, but Chen Yuerui was getting worse, and he ordered that he be immediately taken to a place where there were no people. The guard lifted the prince onto his shoulder and began to push his way through the crowd, loudly dispersing people in order to quickly deliver him to a secluded place. However, a watermelon was suddenly thrown at his feet, causing him to trip and fall along with the prince, causing a loud noise and laughter all around. The enraged prince called the guard a dog and promised to punish him for such clumsiness. His anger seemed to know no bounds. The prince screamed, begging for help, as his stomach ached more and more. He demanded that a way out of the situation be found immediately. The guard begged the gentleman again to take off his pants, otherwise everything would get even worse. He understood that there was no more time to think. Chen Yuerui, realizing that there was no way out, ordered the guard to take off his pants and give them to him, in order to somehow hide his humiliation. The prince put on the guard's pants and hurriedly left. This sight became so comical that the brothers and Min Ye could not help but laugh loudly. Their laughter echoed throughout the market. They were sure that Chen Yuerui got what he deserved. He would remember this humiliation for a long time. The three continued to have fun, making fun of the prince and calling him a shit-eater. Yue Sheng reminded them that he had warned them that this humiliation would be hard to forget. They had not yet returned, and Chu Pei began to wonder if he had been too harsh with Min Ye this morning. This worry tormented him, giving him no peace. He anxiously hoped that the girl had not decided to leave the house because of his stern words. The guilt for their morning conversation now haunted him. At this time, the servant reported that the lady and the prince had gone to the festival and were most likely already returning home. Chu Pei tried to calm down. He tried to believe the servant, but a few minutes later, he personally saw them returning home, and a slight smile of relief appeared on his face. It was nice to see his sons getting along with Min Ye. It filled Chu Pei with warmth because their unity was important to him. It had been a long time since he had seen Xingmu and Yue Sheng so happy. Their joy seemed contagious, awakening a forgotten sense of peace within him. Xingmu happily announced that they had returned, his voice full of enthusiasm, as if he was truly enjoying the day. Min Ye approached her father with a gentle smile, handing him the mask and explaining that it was her gift to him. It was a touching moment. The father, who did not expect a gift, thanked the girl with a kind smile. Her gesture sincerely touched his heart. Min Ye then expressed her desire to talk to her father, and he of course agreed, surprised by her serious mood. Yu Sheng pointed out that they could talk, but she wanted to listen to his opinion too. This prompted her to discuss things more thoroughly. Xingmu pulled him along, saying that it was not her decision and that he should not be so persistent. They were about to leave, but the younger brother protested, saying that he was interested. Min Ye said that although she had the power of the sacred beasts, her abilities were different from his friend's daughter. This emphasized that she had her own unique purpose. The girl aspired to develop the power of the holy beast and become strong so that she would no longer experience tragedies. She understood the importance of self-defense in this world. Chu Pei asked if she really wanted to cultivate the power of the sacred beast. He was surprised by her determination and wanted to make sure that she was serious about it. The girl confirmed her intention and added that she knew about her father's friend, who also developed the power of a holy beast. This was important for her to understand what was possible. He asked in surprise how she knew about it, but the girl corrected herself, saying that it was not her brother, and soon admitted that she had made a mistake. She quickly corrected her words. The father was a little indignant because he knew who could have told her about it. He began to suspect that someone was deliberately pushing her to such questions. When father recalled this, Xingmu's nose itched, and he did not understand why he felt a certain awkwardness, but he could not explain the reason. Min Ye said that she didn't want to pressure her father, but she needed to convince him that she could protect herself. She was determined to prove her independence. Her father stroked her head and said that she was his daughter, and he believed in her. He knew that she was strong, and this was an important confirmation of her abilities for him. Tomorrow they would be able to visit his friend, and the girl was very happy. It was a real gift for her because she had long wanted to know more about the power of the holy beast. She hugged Chu Pei, expressing gratitude and joy. She was very happy and said that she was lucky to have such a caring father. Her father hugged her, too, realizing that he might have been wrong. She was not Yun, not her replacement, and he was beginning to realize that she was unique. The next day, they went to his friend to ask for help. It was an important moment, and they were preparing for the long-awaited visit. Nighty reported that they had arrived, and the girl noted that at first glance, one could understand that an extraordinary person, very wise and mysterious, lived here. They knocked on the door, and the hermit Shu Changin opened it. His appearance immediately made it clear that he was a man who hid many things from the world. Yu, seeing the guests, asked who it was. When he realized that it was his old acquaintance, he became a little scared and stepped aside, clearly not expecting a visit. He asked them to leave and started to close the door, but it was clear that he did not want to receive guests. There was anxiety in his voice, as if he did not want to talk. Xu Pei noticed that before he could even say anything, Xu had already decided to close the door. He reminded his friend that they were best friends and did not deserve such treatment. Xu said that something must have happened to him, since Xu Pei only came in emergency situations when he needed help. This confirmed his concerns. Xu Pei assured that he only had a small request. He did not expect his friend to be so wary, but he knew that he needed help. The girl was simply delighted when she saw this gentleman. He asked her if she was Xu Pei's daughter. She proudly answered that she was. The girl introduced herself as Chen Minye, Xu Pei's daughter. She was proud of her family and happily said that her father was Xu Pei, who was famous in many circles. Xu was embarrassed to see her and was a little confused in response to her words. This was an unexpected meeting for him, and he felt awkward, not knowing how to react. Xu Pei noted with a smile that she was really very sweet, and it was all from her dad. He was proud of his daughter and did not hide his joy at her character. Hugh said that he agreed to help only because of her presence, as she had impressed him. He opened the doors and invited them in. Xu Pei smiled and said that she was a great girl, since Xu was usually not so accommodating. Min Ye was shocked at how she managed to persuade him. Xu Pei told Changgen to teach his daughter how to use the power of the sacred beast. The man was shocked that he had the audacity to say goodbye. Like that, he knows that in order to master the power of the sacred beast, one must use extremely cruel techniques. Xu Pei said that he knew, but only by mastering the power of the sacred beast could his daughter protect herself. Min Ye also said that she knew about it, so she was not afraid. The gentleman admitted that he himself was afraid, because 10 years ago, an incident occurred that left a deep mark on his soul, continuing to influence his life. The man was puzzled as to why it had failed again, since this was already the 7th person, and he could not understand the reason for the next failure. Despite all his efforts, the emperors were on the verge of rage, and if they failed again, no one would be able to prevent their wrath, and the consequences would be dire for them. He insisted that the remaining experiments must be carried out immediately, and that Changgen must begin carrying out this task without delay. But Changgen turned around sharply, slapping the man across the face, showing his determination and steadfastness in his actions, despite the protests and indignation. The man was stunned and thought that this man had gone crazy. Perhaps he had decided to rebel against everyone not understanding his actions and reasons. Changgen explained that this was not an experiment, but real people, that there were no numbers, only real life, and that this was not a game with hair, but a brutal murder. He warned the man to stop talking nonsense, because his words clearly showed that he did not value his life if he continued to behave like that. Changgen said that if he was destined to die, he would accept it, but he was no longer prepared to continue participating in these endless experiments. He was able to stay alive after leaving the army only thanks to Xu Pei, who saved him. And now he is ready to help him, despite his crazy requests. Despite the madness of Xu Pei's requests, Changgen was ready to sacrifice his life to save him, and had no intention of backing down from his obligations. He asked the gentleman to return home, because he understood that he would not be able to fulfill his request, considering it too difficult and dangerous. Min Ye asked the gentleman to help her, stating that this was her personal wish, and she hoped that he would not refuse. The gentleman was embarrassed by her request, but she confidently said that no matter who approached him with this, the answer would always be the same. The girl said that even if he didn't agree today, she would come back tomorrow to make him change his mind, leaving no chance for refusal. But Xu Pei intervened, saying that they could not leave, and stopped her, leaving a clear warning that they would not leave this place without consent. He stated that until the gentleman agreed, they would remain here without leaving this area and would wait for his decision until the last moment. Xu Pei was sure that he would stay here until the master changed his mind and agreed to their request no matter what. Chang Jin indignantly said that he had neither shame nor conscience, since his actions simply could not be justified in this situation. However, the place was secluded, so Chang'an decided to send someone to build some houses for them, where they could live together with Xingmu and Yue Sheng. There were many bamboo forests around, and Chang'an decided that they would cut them all down to use the wood to build the necessary houses for their settlement. He stated that this was enough and seemed to act as if he was deliberately trying to drive them crazy with his actions and decisions. He added that Xu Pei only brings misfortune, and this will be obvious to everyone, but now they can stay and return home as they planned. Min Ye, unable to believe, it asked if the master was really willing to teach her, hoping for his help and support in her endeavors. The man said that the preparation process would be excruciating and painful, and she should be mentally prepared for the difficult tests that would begin in the morning. The girl was happy because her father said that if she couldn't stand the pain, they would return home, but he was already proud of her for her courage and determination. Min Ye, of course, agreed and promised to tell him that she would definitely pass this test and not let him down in the future. The next morning, the man told her that she should sit in the lotus position and concentrate her 5 hearts, pointing them towards the sky to begin the practice. These 5 heavenly hearts symbolize the connection with heaven and earth, and activating them is a pose that helps to draw life force from the world around you. He also said that she should swallow a pill, after which her body would completely relax, and she would enter a state suitable for the next stage. When she swallows the pill, her body will relax, and she will go into a trance, allowing him to work on her acupuncture points for healing. This process was extremely painful, and many children with the power of sacred beasts could not even endure the first trial, dying from loss of blood. He reminded them that it was too late to retreat now because he had seen Xu Pei lose his daughter and did not want it to happen again, which had encouraged them yesterday. He said that if she took the medicine, the consequences could be extremely severe, and she was even risking her life that her death was now possible. But the girl did not agree with this, saying that she would always be Daddy's girl, which was destined by fate, and after that she decisively swallowed the pill. The gentleman sighed, seeing her determination, and said that in that case, they could begin the procedure right now without delaying it for a minute. He began the ritual while the girl was in a deep trance, a critical moment for her physical and spiritual transformation. The girl had already begun to feel how warm energy filled her body, creating a feeling of deep calm and peace like never before. She felt her body filling with pure energy that flowed freely, bringing her an amazing feeling of lightness and harmony. The energy spread throughout her body and gathered in one point, and she felt that this was the power of the sacred beast that was awakening within her. Min Ye felt her body being renewed and filled with strength. She felt completely new and full of energy, ready for any challenge. The gentleman was stunned to see a smile on her face that he did not expect to see, especially in such a difficult and painful process. Chang Jin noted that he did not expect this, and added that this was the first time he saw that she was not in pain, but on the contrary, felt great. When the girl opened her eyes, the gentleman said that they could now continue the test and try to evaluate the result of her preparation. The girl realized that it seemed to be the power of the sacred beast. The master said that her body does not repel the power of the sacred beast. This happens extremely rarely. Her abilities are truly unique. Min Ye was very happy and asked if this meant she was cool. Well, this is just the beginning. In the coming days, she will continue to develop her strength and prepare for it. The body of the sacred beast is not only to light the lantern from a distance, but also to constantly develop your skills in using it. Min Ye couldn't wait for the training to start, and a month later the girl stood with her father and wanted him to watch carefully. With the help of her magical abilities, the girl managed to light the lanterns, but for some reason only two. She was surprised, but decided to continue trying, realizing that her magic must be stronger. A little later, she managed to light 5 of the 6 lanterns. She wondered, if she lights them all, her father will start to worry, because her true abilities should remain a secret. To hide her true power, she pretended to be having trouble, and tried to slow down the process. She knew her magic could raise questions that were best left unanswered. The girl claimed that she couldn't do anything. Even when the situation didn't change, she persistently maintained the illusion of her weakness. She was sorry that the last lantern remained unlit. She did it on purpose to finally convince everyone of her clumsiness. Xu Pei praised her, noting that she had made significant progress in a month. Her progress was obvious, and this pleased him as a teacher. He said it was time to go home. The girl did not object because she also missed home, and happily agreed. Xu Pei sincerely thanked Chang'an for his help, but he brushed it off, saying that gratitude was unnecessary, and that he was simply doing his duty. Chang'an even added that there was no point in coming back, and next time he might not open the door, but his words were said with a bit of irony. However, Chang'an noted that he would always be happy to see his daughter. This was said with sincerity, showing his affection for the girl. Min Ye promised that she would definitely visit the teacher in the future, because she felt deep respect and gratitude towards him. After saying goodbye to Chang'an, Min Ye went home with her father, feeling that new adventures awaited her. She told her father that now that she could hide her power, she should pay attention to the palace, where important tasks awaited her. Her father agreed with her decision, noting that this was the right time to channel her abilities in the right direction. Min Ye was happy because she would soon meet Chen Huaiming. She was determined to change his fate and prevent him from becoming a tyrant. In the Lenggong Palace, Chen Yuerui decided to visit his 6th brother. He brought with him a lot of firecrackers to amuse himself. Yuerui invited his brother to play, and then, without waiting for his consent, began throwing firecrackers at him, embarrassing and irritating him. He threw another firecracker straight at his brother, who by this point was hard to recognize, bruised and beaten. The 5th prince, laughing, literally showered him with firecrackers, not giving him a chance to catch his breath. Yuerui, watching this chaos, could not stay away. She wanted to play with her brothers, and did not want the 6th prince to try to hide from all these attacks. After another blow, the 6th brother lost his balance, and fell to the floor with a dull thud. Still laughing, the 5th prince continued throwing firecrackers at him, ignoring his attempts to defend himself. Yuerui, seeing that the game had gone too far, asked the 6th prince why he was hiding. In her opinion, it was unfair, since they had not yet had time to play properly. However, the 5th prince again persistently distracted the 6th, demanding his attention. The 6th prince was already beginning to tire of constantly trying to avoid new games. The 6th prince was forced to defend himself against his brother's endless attacks. It seemed like there would be no end to this chaos, because the 5th prince was not going to give in. When he threw another firecracker, it hit the target, causing his brother to stop. Shocked by the sudden impact, the 6th prince did not immediately understand what had happened. The guards who were monitoring the scene noticed that the 6th prince's hair was on fire. They immediately raised the alarm to stop the fire and avoid serious consequences. The fire was quickly put out, but the 6th prince complained of pain from the burns. His face expressed a mixture of anger and resentment, which further heated up the situation. The 5th prince, despite the seriousness of the situation, only laughed at him. This mocking behavior made the 6th prince even more furious, and he could no longer contain his emotions. The 6th prince felt that his younger brother had crossed all boundaries. He ordered the guards to immediately detain the culprit to stop this outrage. Despite the tense situation, the 5th prince claimed that it was just a game. He promised that next time they would have even more fun. He ended up laughing even louder, but this only increased the anger of his brother, who was clearly in no mood to share the younger man's joy. The palace where Huiming lived was famous for its beauty. The graceful architecture and lush gardens made it a special place, but behind those walls were many dramas. Life in the Lenggong Palace was full of hardships. Despite his outward appearance of well-being, Huiming often suffered, causing concern to those dear to him. His sister turned to their father, trying to find out how they would spend the day. Her question was dictated not so much by curiosity, but by internal experiences. Today, there was a celebration in the palace, gathering all the members of the royal house. They came to congratulate the emperor and his wife on this solemn day. This day was special, and the girl remembered how in the manhua, it was at this time that Huiming was poisoned. This thought made her nervous. The secret behind this poisoning was the evil deed of concubine Jin, the mother of the fifth prince Yuerui. Her treacherous act was the beginning of many misfortunes. Huiming did not die, but the poison left an indelible mark on his body. The constant torment of the toxin changed his character, turning him into a completely different person. This event became a key moment that laid the foundation for his future transformation into a tyrant capable of cruel acts. However, the girl understood that she had to prevent the tragedy. Her determination to save Huiming grew stronger. Xu Pei, understanding the responsibility, warned that there would be many guests in the palace today, and Min Ye was here for the first time, so the brothers had to keep an eye on her. Xingmu agreed to fulfill the request, but Yue Sheng pointed out that she had nothing to worry about since he would be keeping a close eye on her. However, Xu Pei noticed that the girl had suddenly disappeared. She had been standing next to him just recently, but now she had disappeared somewhere, which greatly alarmed him. It was not easy for him to cope with this restless child. Despite all his strictness, he felt that the situation was getting out of control. The eldest son reassured him, suggesting that he immediately begin searching for the missing girl. His confidence eased Xu Pei's anxiety a little. Yu Xing insisted on being allowed to join the search and expressed his willingness to help his brother and find her as quickly as possible. The courtyard of Guihua Palace was quiet and luxurious. On one of the pavilions stood a majestic lady, all in rich robes, exuding a powerful charm. There was another woman standing next to her, and several princes were present. The empress, creating a calm atmosphere, ordered sweet soup to be served to them as a sign of respect. It was this courtyard, once beautiful, that had become the site of the tragedy where Huiming had been poisoned. His memory still lingered here, filling the air with tension. There were guards at the entrance to Guihua Palace, keeping a close eye on everything that was happening. It was difficult for the stranger to figure out how to get inside unnoticed. Looking around, she noticed a spreading tree nearby. Looking up, the woman came up with a plan. With its help, she would be able to sneak into the right place, unnoticed. Meanwhile, the lady took special care to persuade the sixth prince to drink the sweet soup. She prepared it especially for him with hidden intentions. Min Ye, watching all this, sat comfortably on a tree branch. She watched the events, carefully holding her breath. According to the original story, it was this sweet soup that proved fatal to Huiming. His poisoning was part of a plot full of hidden threats. It was time to use the power of the sacred beast. Min Ye realized that she could heat objects from a distance using this mystical ability. The maid, who was holding a bowl of soup, suddenly felt her hands burn. She dropped the dish and it smashed on the floor with a loud sound. The mistress flared up and shouted at the maid in rage, calling her worthless. Her voice was full of contempt, as if the maid's life no longer mattered. The frightened maid immediately fell to her knees and began to beg for forgiveness. She explained that the soup had suddenly become too hot and she had not been able to hold the bowl. However, the lady was skeptical of her words. She could not understand how a simple sweet soup could become so hot. Her suspicions grew stronger. The maid continued to swear her honesty. She assured her mistress that she would not dare to lie, but her despair only fueled suspicion. The empress intervened and turned to concubine Jin. She pointed out that today's celebration should not be spoiled by a broken plate, since the soup could be served again. The woman, understanding the importance of the empress's words, immediately apologized. She admitted that she had indeed gotten carried away and promised to be more restrained in the future. Min Ye watched this with relief. Her plan had succeeded. No one suspected her involvement, and the power of the sacred beast had once again proven extremely useful. However, a boy standing in the crowd noticed Min Ye. His gaze was full of curiosity. He wanted to understand who she was and what she was doing in the tree. Min Ye tried to use gestures to explain to him that the soup was poisoned. She warned him not to drink it, but the boy did not immediately understand her hint. Her desperate attempts to convey the meaning were in vain. The boy remained confused. His lack of understanding made it difficult for her to proceed. Suddenly, the branch under Min Ye cracked, and she began to fall. This attracted the attention of the guards, who immediately rushed to the scene. However, when the guards ran up to the tree, they found no one. This only increased their confusion. It was unclear who could have been there and what had happened. Chen Huiming thought that this girl was behind him. It seemed like she wanted to tell him something. After this, the fifth prince approached him and called him to him. Huiming asked what was the matter. The boy said that he had no sweet soup, and out of the kindness of his heart, he had saved him a bowl so that he could have some. The guy also said that he added a ball of black sugar. It's very tasty. He can try it. Huiming said that this was too much. The prince asked what he was talking about because he was with all his soul, and therefore he did not understand why his younger brother was shouting. He didn't understand why the guards were standing there. Like they were stuck, they had to grab him because this guy had to eat the whole plate. He suddenly took off running, disappearing quickly into the labyrinths of the palace. The guards, armed and alert, rushed after him, but his agility and speed gave him the advantage. Chen Yuerui, seeing that the guards were lagging behind, loudly ordered them to speed up. His voice was full of determination. The fugitive could not be allowed to get lost in the crowded part of the palace. Min Ye, who found herself in a huge palace, looked around in confusion. Its size and complexity made her confused. She did not know where to go or how to find the right place. She accidentally bumped into Huiming. The impact was unexpected, and both of them fell to the ground, not yet realizing who was in front of them. The boy recognized Min Ye as the one who had just been hiding in the tree, and she in turn realized that in front of her was the same Huiming she had heard about earlier. Chen Yuerui finally caught up with them and triumphantly announced that Min Ye was Yue Sheng's sister, making her an ally. He thought this was a great deal. Without wasting any time, he ordered the sixth prince to be seized immediately. The guards immediately carried out the order, seizing the boy, despite his resistance. Huiming screamed furiously, demanding that he be released and his hands removed. However, Chen Yuerui remained indifferent to his protests, only smirking. The fifth prince, turning to his brother, asked him sarcastically where he was rushing to. He reminded him that he had not yet tried the sweet soup, which he would be sorry to throw away. Huiming, despite the ridicule, was not going to give in. He was irritated that his brother dared to force him to eat, especially without explaining anything. Min Ye knew that the soup contained a cockroach, and she was only angry at the fifth prince, considering him a persistent, cunning, and vile person, ready to commit vile acts. Chen Yuerui ignored Huiming's displeasure and said that he should eat the soup immediately, as it was an order that could not be ignored. Min Ye then decided to intervene. She asked with interest whether the soup was really as delicious as they said, and expressed her desire to try it. The fifth prince looked at her with distrust, pushed the soup away, and rudely ordered her to leave, so as not to irritate him with her presence. But Min Ye continued to insist, urging him to share at least a little. She reproached the prince for being greedy, which only made him angrier. In the midst of their argument, he pushed her away abruptly, causing some of the soup to spill. At this point, the situation became even more tense. Then he slipped, and the soup residue ended up on his clothes, staining them. It all looked ridiculous and caused laughter from those around him. The guards immediately ran up to the fifth prince, trying to bring him back to his senses. However, his mood had clearly deteriorated even more. Taking advantage of the moment, Min Ye whispered to the sixth prince that now was the time to run away, while attention was distracted by what had happened. To distract attention even more, she added that there was a cockroach hiding in the fifth prince's clothes, which caused quite a stir. The prince screamed, demanding that his guards immediately rid him of the insect. Panic spread around, causing even more chaos. The servant suggested undressing the prince to examine his clothes carefully. This idea made the fifth prince furious and indignant. He began to insult the servant and even kick him, believing that he was disgracing him in front of others. The prince's anger was uncontrollable. The guard tried to smooth things over by suggesting that they return to the palace to avoid further scandal, which had already attracted attention. Min Ye, satisfied with the result, quietly let go of the cockroach from her hand. She smiled, realizing that her plan had succeeded. Meanwhile, the brothers approached her, and Min Ye felt both fear and excitement. She did not expect to see them here. Yu Sheng calmly reminded her that the palace was a place where order had to be maintained, and asked her not to make such scenes again. The girl regretfully admitted her guilt and sincerely apologized for the trouble she had caused, lowering her head before her older brother. Xingmu smiled slightly and said that she had played enough and it was time to go back. He was clearly pleased with her repentance. Min Ye excitedly said that it was the first time she had used her abilities and that she had succeeded. She was proud of herself. Xingmu praised her, but reminded her that their father was waiting for them, and it was time to go, so as not to keep him waiting for long. Huiming suddenly stopped. He realized that he couldn't leave Min Ye alone and decided to go back to make sure she was okay. However, he noticed that she was leaving with her brothers. This calmed him down, and he decided that she was no longer in any danger. But he still didn't understand why she helped him. Meanwhile, Min Ye had already met her father and announced her return. She apologized for using the sacred beast's power, emphasizing that no one noticed. She was worried that she had made her father worry, but her father assured her that there was no reason to apologize. He believed in her and knew that she acted with good intentions. Min Ye was surprised by his reaction. She expected punishment, or at least rebuke, but he only expressed his support. The father also said that one of the reasons for their visit was to prepare for school. In 3 days, the girl was to start school. This news made Min Ye happy. She was excited because she had long dreamed of studying. But Yue Sheng was in complete shock. His shock was so strong that he began to complain to his father that this news gave him a headache. Guihua Palace. The maid simply begged the mistress to forgive her, but the concubine was very angry and shouted that this maid was just a useless piece of trash because she couldn't even serve a bowl of soup. The concubine, exhausted with rage, shouted loudly that the servant was completely useless. Her anger was expressed not only in words, but also in the cruel ridicule that fell upon the unfortunate woman. The maid, trembling with fear, fell to her knees begging the concubine for mercy. However, her tears and pleas were met with cold indifference. The concubine remained adamant. Li Anhai, the eunuch, came closer and said in a reserved tone that even if the concubine broke the maid's arm, now it would not change anything and would not bring the problem closer to resolution. The concubine understood the eunuch's words as a hidden request to show mercy to the maid, but her gaze only flashed with contempt. She was not going to listen to advice. The eunuch reminded her that if the truth about the poisoning of the sixth prince came out, the consequences would be terrible for everyone. He tried to persuade the lady to act wisely. Li Anhai suggested that the concubine not get her hands dirty and let him handle the situation himself. He assured her that he would take care of everything and she could focus on her own affairs. The maid screamed in despair that she would not tell anyone anything if only they would spare her. However, the concubine mercilessly pushed her away without even looking her in the eye. Looking at the eunuch with disdain, the concubine ordered him to leave, claiming that the place was too dirty for her presence, and continued to look around the room mockingly. The eunuch calmed the lady, promising that everything would be settled, although the maid, without ceasing, continued to ask for mercy, clinging to her last chance. Li Anhai stuffed a piece of paper into the maid's mouth to silence her pleas. The guards then grabbed her and led her away, ignoring her resistance. The concubine calmly ordered that the sixth prince be eliminated as soon as possible, emphasizing that they must not make such mistakes again. 3 days later, at Tai Shui school, Yue Sheng again complained that every time he sat down to read, he began to suffer from a severe headache that prevented him from concentrating. Min Ye noticed that Huiming was missing and was confused. She wondered why she couldn't see the sixth prince in class when the school year had just begun. Worried, she approached the teacher and asked if he knew the reason for Prince Huiming's absence, as it seemed completely strange and untimely to her. The teacher answered honestly that he knew nothing about it. His words only increased Min Ye's anxiety. As she began to recall details from the original story, she recalled that Huiming, in the original work, was locked up in Lengui, and no one cared about his fate. No one cared about his studies back then either. Chen Yuerui was puzzled as to how a person like Huiming could even come to Tai Shui. In his eyes, it was completely ridiculous, and the prince himself was useless. It was mentioned in the discussion circle that despite his title, Huiming was nothing more than a miserable degenerate who had lost his mother. The fifth prince did not hide his contempt for him. Min Ye thought that the fifth prince was a real scumbag. In her opinion, if it weren't for him, and concubine Jin Huiming's childhood wouldn't have been as tragic as it was. Huiming couldn't understand why Min Ye was staring at him. Her attention irritated him, especially when she suddenly started asking strange questions. The teacher sternly reminded her that it was class time, and she was not allowed to leave the classroom. However, Min Ye still left without paying attention to his words, which surprised everyone. One of the students asked about the girl who had so brazenly broken the rules. He was told that her name was Chen Min Ye, and that she had recently become the adopted daughter of Prince Chu Pei. The fifth prince sneered that she was just a simpleton without a mother. He expressed disdain for her background, which enraged Yue Sheng. Yu Sheng, without holding back his emotions, asked the prince how he dared to talk about his sister like that. The prince, not understanding the reason for his anger, suggested that Yue Sheng immediately start a fight. Meanwhile, Min Ye walked up to the director and greeted him politely, drawing attention to herself with manners that were uncharacteristic for her young age. The director, recognizing Min Ye, noted that she was the adopted daughter of Prince Chu Pei. This added importance to her, but he was wary of her approach to a question that was not age-appropriate. Min Ye asked why the sixth Prince Huiming was not present at the school when the training had started, and it was his duty. She expressed sincere concern. The director explained that documents were required for admission, and no one had provided them. Moreover, concubine Jin had already ordered that the prince remain in Lengui. Min Ye objected, stating that even if no one had taken care of the prince's admission, it was still his right to study. She asked the principal to correct this omission. The emperor was surprised when he heard her words. He did not expect that such a young girl would dare to say such things, especially since it was not her duty. The emperor felt that Min Ye was taking on too much because she was only the adopted daughter of a prince. Her background was rural, and school was a great privilege. He thought that her impudence sounded like a reproach to the imperial family. If even the family itself could not resolve this issue, what could a village girl do? Min Ye loudly and confidently retorted that she was Mr. Chu Pei's daughter and not a village girl. Her words sounded so decisive that everyone froze in amazement. The emperor was shocked by her self-confidence. She truly considered herself equal to the nobles, and this caused him a mixture of surprise and irritation. He was about to give her a sarcastic answer, but at that moment a man entered the room, whose presence made everyone hold their breath. Min Ye recognized him immediately. It was her father, Prince Chu Pei, who turned decisively to the director. The director immediately felt the tension and bowed in fear before the noble guest. Xu Pei asked, imperiously, who the director thought he was, to dare to treat his daughter like that. His voice sounded like thunder, increasing the fear of those around him. The director, speechless, tried to justify himself, but his words were confused. He was shaking. Realizing that his life could depend on every word he spoke, Min Ye felt relieved by her father's presence. Her fear and anxiety began to subside, and she looked at him gratefully, feeling his support. Xu Pei explained that he had come to see his daughter, as it was her first day at school. His concern for her was understandable, but he had not expected to be insulted in such a way. The prince expressed bewilderment at how the director could behave so insolently. This was a clear challenge to his authority, and a threat to family honor which was unacceptable. The director, trembling, tried to explain, but the prince firmly stated that from the moment Min Ye was adopted, her previous origin no longer mattered. Now she is a princess and a royal relative. Xu Pei warned the director, any disrespect towards her will be considered an insult to the entire family. For this, he reminded, there was a severe penalty. Contempt for the royal family was not forgiven, and he asked the director if he realized the gravity of his guilt. Min Ye, without waiting for an answer, loudly announced that such a crime was punishable by death. Her words sounded firm, despite her young age. The director fell to his knees, begging for mercy. He assured the prince that he would never allow himself to do something like that again, and was ready to follow all his instructions. Xu Pei put away his sword and warned the director that this was his last chance. If he wanted to save his life, he had to be extremely careful in the future. Min Ye took advantage of the moment to tell her father that the director had refused to deal with the issue of accepting the sixth prince, despite his status. She added that ignoring the sixth prince, who even lives in Lengui, is an insult to the royal family. The director remained indifferent to this. Xu Pei turned to the director and asked if this was really the case. The director, in a panic, declared that it was a misunderstanding and promised to personally resolve the situation. Min Ye replied that there was no need to bother him and expressed her willingness to go to Lenggong Palace herself to take care of the sixth prince. The director tried to object, pointing out that her proposal was inappropriate, but he said this extremely carefully, fearing to anger the prince. Xu Pei calmly but firmly objected that his family considered it entirely appropriate and asked the director directly if he had any objections. The director, realizing that it was useless to argue quickly, assured that he had no objections. He handed Min Ye the documents necessary for the sixth prince's admission. Min Ye was happy that everything was resolved so easily. She told her father that she would now go to the palace and find the prince to help him enroll in school. Her father gave her his pass and asked her to be careful. His concern touched Min Ye, but she confidently assured him that everything would be fine. After saying goodbye, Min Ye went to the sixth prince, with firm determination, convinced that she would definitely be able to handle this task. Min Ye was surprised the palace complex is very large, so she doesn't know which of these buildings is the Lenggong Palace, where Huiming lives. She noticed Li Anming, who is the godson of the Grand Eunuch. Li Anhai, his lackey who does his dirty work for him. He continued to bully Huiming. This man who had surprised everyone with his clumsiness and defiant behavior was here. No wonder they were probably looking for Huiming, because there were always problems swirling around him. There was an incredible amount of noise outside. The first day of school always brings bustle and noise, but this had nothing to do with the prince's case, and only added to the feeling of alienation. Huiming thought about the mysterious girl. Her appearance would be a miracle, but it was difficult to get into the palace. Every corner here was under surveillance, especially from vile characters like his pursuers. However, all his thoughts were secondary to the excruciating hunger. He sat like a withering flower with a sad expression on his face, trying to find at least a little energy in himself. Li Anming suddenly burst in his eyes, flashing, and his voice harsh, and he enthusiastically declared that he had been looking for him, as if he was delighted at his good fortune in finding the prince at the right moment. Huiming couldn't understand what had happened, but Li Anming quickly explained. Today was the Empress Dowager's name day, and in her honor, special peach buns were prepared for the princes. These buns looked delicious, but the prince only frowned in disbelief. He was reminded that the emperor himself was obliged to accept the empress's gifts, and even more so, he, the sixth prince, could not refuse. Despite his hunger, Huiming was in no hurry to accept the gift. He felt that there was a catch. Why, when he was hungry, did they suddenly decide to bring him food? The gesture seemed suspicious. The prince said that they should stop forcing these buns on him. He categorically refused to eat them clearly, demonstrating his stubbornness and mistrust of the eunuch's intentions. Li Anming was adamant. He reminded her that this was not just food, but a gift from the Empress Dowager, and refusing it was considered disrespectful. Even the emperor did not dare to oppose her will. But Huiming was not going to give in. He coldly asked what would happen to him if he still refused. His insolent tone clearly irritated the servants, but the prince remained confident. Li Anming chuckled and said that he would have to be force-fed. Then there was a threat in his voice that made one feel uneasy, but Huiming did not flinch. The guards grabbed him, and he was helpless. The young man was completely confused and did not understand how far these people were willing to go to carry out orders. The eunuch declared that it did not matter to him whether the prince wanted to eat the buns or not. The order of the Empress Dowager was not to be discussed, and the sixth prince was obliged to carry out her will. To emphasize his duty, the eunuch repeated emphatically that even the emperor obeyed her words. Therefore, Huiming must eat the buns regardless of his desire. Huiming screamed to be left alone. He protested desperately and categorically refused to eat the buns, but their pressure only grew stronger. In a fit of anger, he kicked one of the buns. It flew across the room and landed with a loud slap right in the eunuch's face, stopping him in his tracks. The guards immediately rushed to their master, anxiously asking if he was okay. Everything that was happening looked absurd, but no one dared to laugh. Huiming coldly stated that the eunuch was to blame for this, calling him a monstrous old turtle and not hiding his contempt and indignation. These words made the eunuch lose his temper. His face turned red with anger, and without thinking, he struck the prince, putting all his anger into the blow. Huiming fell to the ground from the blow. His face was burning with pain, and blood flowed from his broken lip. He could hardly comprehend that someone had dared to raise a hand against him. He was filled with anger and humiliation. How could this lowly servant dare to hit him, the sixth prince? Such impudence seemed unthinkable. Li Anming said that the blow was not from him personally, but on behalf of the Empress Dowager. It was a punishment for disrespecting her gift, which could not be forgiven. He added that such a crime could not be ignored. The punishment was an expression of his devotion to the Empress, and he would not allow her name to be tarnished. Li Anming ordered the guards to force the prince to kneel. The order was cold and peremptory, emphasizing his determination. Huiming screamed desperately, demanding to be released. He accused the guards of exceeding their authority and had no right to treat him like that. But Li Anming remained adamant. The sixth prince must eat the peach buns to honor the health of the Empress Dowager. Huiming was shocked by his impudence. He couldn't believe that this servant dared to treat him, the heir of royal blood, like that. Li Anming just chuckled, adding that Huiming still considered himself an important prince, although in the eyes of others he had become a nobody, a mere pawn, without power or respect. But suddenly, something unexpected happened. One of the buns began to heat up in the eunuch's hands, and then exploded with a loud bang, stunning everyone. The eunuch clutched his face, while the servants and guards watched in horror. No one understood how this was possible. Huiming realized that this was no coincidence. He remembered the mysterious girl and decided that it was she who came to his aid again at the right moment. He turned and saw her in the tree. The girl signaled him to remain silent. Her appearance was unexpected but encouraging. At this time, Li Anming's face was completely covered with burns. The servants and guards could not hide their horror at the sight of their master. One of the guards ordered the maid to shut up and urgently find a doctor to help Li Anming cope with the aftermath of the incident. Li Anming could hardly comprehend what was happening. The pain from the burns was unbearable, and his face seemed swollen and damaged. Meanwhile, the girl jumped down from the tree and ran to Huiming. She asked him worriedly if he was okay, showing genuine concern. Huiming couldn't hide his joy. He met again the same girl who had been so resourceful and brave at this critical moment. She smiled and asked me not to call her Tree Girl anymore. Her name was Min Ye, and she was the daughter of Prince Chen Chu Pei, the emperor's brother. Hearing this, Huiming realized that she was his cousin. Her appearance at this moment seemed fateful, as if fate itself had sent her here to help him. Huiming glanced at the scene and noticed that Min Ye had just exploded the buns. This made him genuinely surprised, but she smiled and noted his observation as if she had been expecting such a remark. Min Ye honestly admitted that she used the power of the sacred beast to demonstrate her abilities. She showed off her abilities without any hesitation, making Huiming even more interested. He guessed that she had also used this power when she manipulated the sweet soup. His guess was quite accurate, but the girl remained calm, neither confirming nor denying his words. Min Ye explained that she knew about the intention to poison the soup, so she heated the bowl, causing the maid to drop it. Her actions were deliberate and calculated. Huiming admitted that his sister was truly incredible, but Min Ye warned that her abilities must remain a secret. If they found out, she would be captured immediately. He promised that he would never tell anyone about it, because such a secret should not be revealed. At that moment they heard a rumbling stomach which interrupted their serious conversation. Huiming sheepishly explained that it was his stomach growling, as it happened quite often. The girl shook her head with a smile, realizing how hungry the boy was. Min Ye immediately remembered that she had brought him a meat bun. She took it out, hoping that it would at least satisfy his hunger a little and lift his spirits. In the original story, Huiming lived in a palace in difficult conditions. He often had no food or warm clothes, so Min Ye brought him some delicious food. Huiming couldn't contain his joy. The bun was big, fragrant, and hot. It was a real treat for him, and he couldn't wait to try it. Min Ye, seeing his joy, suggested that they start eating quickly. Huiming was incredibly grateful for such care, because he had not had such a delicious meal for a long time. It was completely incomprehensible to Min Ye that such a cute boy could become a bloodthirsty tyrant in the future. She could not allow this to happen. This sweet child shouldn't become cruel, and it wasn't just her father. She genuinely wanted him to change for his own sake. Huiming noticed that she was staring at him and assumed that perhaps he had overeaten, although the girl immediately reassured him. Min Ye said that he had to eat everything to gain strength. Without food, it would be difficult for them to cope with the difficulties that awaited them. However, Huiming put the bun down, which greatly surprised Min. Yes, she couldn't understand what made him do that. He explained that he felt weak and helpless. If he were as strong as she was, none of the eunuchs would be able to bully him. Min Ye asked if he really wanted to change and become as strong as her. Her voice was serious and encouraging. Huiming answered without hesitation that he would like to. He thought she was incredibly cool and wanted to be like her. Min Ye suggested that he praise her as his teacher. She promised to accompany him and teach him everything she knew, which delighted the boy. When he tried to kneel in front of her, the girl quickly stopped him. She said that he did not need to humiliate himself because she just wanted to help. Huiming, touched by the girl's kindness, realized that he had found a true mentor in her. He confidently declared that he would accept her as his teacher, and she promised to teach him everything she knew. Huiming was happy because a tasty lunch had long become a rarity for him. He noted to himself that he had not eaten so satisfyingly and calmly for several years, thanks to the girl's care. A joyful Min Ye smiled and suggested going to school. She felt inspired because she had a friend next to her with whom she could share knowledge. But Huiming refused, hanging his head. He sadly explained that he was forbidden to study, and in this life he was only allowed to endure and drag out a miserable existence. The girl confidently declared that he could now attend classes because she had already taken care of his enrollment. Her determination gave Huiming a spark of hope. The amazed Huiming admitted with admiration that such an action was quite expected from his teacher, but Min Ye only smiled modestly, considering it just a small favor. She reminded them that they had to hurry, otherwise they would be late for their last lesson. Huiming, a little embarrassed, nodded and hurried after her, feeling different. During the lesson, the students were told the ancient myth of the water shepherd and the weaver, captivating them with the mysterious story. Min Ye and Huiming listened attentively to every word. Meanwhile, Yue Sheng, noticing Min Ye's absence, began to worry. Her thoughts were confused and she could not figure out where the girl had disappeared to, and the lessons seemed endless. Suddenly, Min Ye entered the classroom and announced with a smile that she was back. The students turned to look at her, surprised by her sudden appearance and mysterious behavior. The girl added that she had managed to transfer a new student to the school. The teacher was surprised by her words and asked who she was talking about because this was not in his plans. Min Ye proudly replied that it was the sixth prince, Lord Huiming. Her words caused whispers and surprise among the students, and the teacher frowned. Chen Yuerui, without hiding her disdain, asked who allowed the prince to come here. Her cold gaze challenged and caused tension in the classroom. She stated that Huiming had no right to be here, as he was just a despised outcast living in his palace, and should remember his place. Chen Yuerui also reminded him that his mother died because she couldn't bear the weight of her sins. Her words were cruel and sharp, like a sharp blade. Other students joined in. They demanded that Huiming leave. Min Ye was shocked by their cruelty and tried to understand why they were so angry. Huiming's mother, a concubine, fell victim to the machinations of concubine Jin and was banished to Lenggong, where she committed suicide due to the suffering. The students' cries continued unabated. They became increasingly vocal in their discontent, outraged that the prince had dared to cross the threshold of their school. Min Ye, trying to restore order, took out the list of students. She emphasized that the principal personally signed it and approved Huiming's enrollment. The teacher confirmed the girl's words, noting that the document was indeed signed by Mr. Lin. This meant that Huiming had the right to study. Min Ye proudly declared that no one could object. Now the support of the teacher and the principal put an end to their dispute. Yue Sheng, who remained neutral, calmly remarked that it did not matter to him who went to school. He did not think it was worth paying attention to. Chen Yuerui, irritated by Yue Sheng's words, replied that it was none of her business either. However, she did not miss the opportunity to humiliate the prince. Min Ye ignored the attacks and asked the teacher to show her where the fifth prince could sit. Her voice was firm. The teacher pointed to a seat next to her. The girl quickly walked over and asked Huiming to sit down. But a problem suddenly stood in her way. Chen Yuerui meanly tripped Min Ye. She fell to the ground, causing the surrounding people to laugh. This humiliation could not go unanswered. The fifth prince couldn't help but laugh loudly. He mocked her clumsiness, calling her blind and comparing her to a caterpillar. His words were full of malice. Indignant, Min Ye felt anger rising inside her. She clenched her fists, fighting the urge to hit the offender, but tried to restrain herself. Huiming and Yue Sheng were able to get her up and asked if she was in pain. The girl said that she was completely fine. Yue Sheng immediately ran up to Chen Yuerui and told him to stop bullying his sister. If he wanted to fight, then he would fight properly, but he was kicking his ass. The fifth prince told him to stop talking nonsense. No one was making fun of his sister, and no one can confirm this. His friends immediately started saying that they hadn't seen anything and didn't know anything at all, and they said that Yue Sheng was talking to the fifth prince, so he should watch his language. The teacher was in a state of deep shock. He found it hard to believe that the fifth prince and the second heir of King Jin were quarreling again. This added a lot of trouble to his already troublesome teaching. Min Ye was seething with indignation, full of desire to punish the offender. She told the teacher that the prince had deliberately tripped her up. The girl was ready to convince the teacher of the need to deal with this matter. She added indignantly that the prince had disrupted the lesson and humiliated his classmates. This was unacceptable, so she insisted that the prince be punished for his behavior. The teacher, in turn, felt extremely uncomfortable. He understood perfectly well that as an ordinary teacher, he had no right to treat members of the imperial family rudely, let alone take sides. Chen Yurui countered by saying that it was Min Ye's fault, since she was the one who stepped on his foot. He claimed that he simply responded in kind, and several of his classmates immediately confirmed his words. The teacher suggested that they find out the truth by turning to the other students, but they remained silent, avoiding getting involved in the argument. The prince insisted that Min Ye started it first. He claimed that everyone saw her step on his foot and that he was the one who reacted. Since the teacher also did not see anything, he could not make an objective decision. He suggested forgetting about the misunderstanding and returning to the lesson to restore order in the classroom. However, Huiming raised his hand and said that he had seen everything. He accused his older brother of doing it deliberately and insisted that he apologize to the girl. Chen Yurui grabbed the young man by the collar, frowned, and exclaimed that he could not even imagine how small and pitiful cockroaches dared to imagine themselves as something important. He mockingly asked him to repeat what he had said. Huiming, without flinching under his gaze, once again demanded that the fifth prince apologize and emphasized that such words could not be left unpunished. Min Ye was shocked by the prince's rudeness, and someone nearby noticed that little Huiming was brave and decisive, which earned the respect of some onlookers. Chen Yurui lunged forward to strike him, but Huiming, without losing his presence of mind, continued to shout that the prince had to apologize for his behavior. The fifth prince contemptuously called Huiming a dead cockroach and added that a worthless person like him had no right to tell him anything. Yu Sheng couldn't help but shout loudly for the fifth prince to immediately release the sixth prince, adding that his actions were unacceptable. Chen Yuerui's friends, noticing that Yue Sheng was interfering, grabbed her arm, rudely reminding her that it was none of her business, and telling her not to stick her nose where it didn't belong. Min Ye desperately shouted to the teacher that the situation was getting worse, but he didn't pay attention and continued to sit and read books as if he hadn't heard anything. The girl realized that the old man had no intention of interfering in what was happening and did not hope for a peaceful solution to the problem. This made her feel that everything depended on her. Realizing that the outcome of the situation depended on her actions, she decided to take matters into her own hands and figure out what to do to keep things from getting out of control. Min Ye loudly exclaimed that the emperor had arrived and pointed to the side as if someone had actually appeared, hoping to cause panic among those present. When everyone heard that the emperor had come, they were afraid. Chen Yuerui immediately abandoned the sixth prince and ordered him to give way, not understanding what was happening. However, when everyone turned to the door, they found that there was no one there, and everyone was completely confused, trying to understand what had happened and what kind of jokes they had experienced. Min Ye did this on purpose, hoping to use the power of the phoenix. She burned the rope that was tied to the cheerful lamp hanging right above the fifth prince's head. Chen Yerui was shocked by her action and could not understand how she dared to lie to him. Suddenly a lamp fell on him, and he was completely confused. He was completely confused and could not understand why the lamp fell on him. His friends were also confused and did not know what was happening at that moment. The prince ordered someone to help immediately and remove the lamp from him. His friends rushed to help, assuring him that they would rescue him from this situation as soon as possible. Min Ye winked at her brother, and together they tripped the two guys, leading to a comical situation in which no one could remain calm. Chen Yueru was furious, and couldn't understand what kind of stupid things these idiots were doing, completely unaware of what was actually happening around him. At this time, the sixth prince came up from behind and pushed Chen Yuerui, who did not immediately understand what was happening. He was at a loss, trying to figure out what was happening. Soon, Chen Yuerui fell to the floor and began to thrash around hysterically, begging for someone to help him, as he did not know how to get out of this ridiculous situation. He felt very dizzy and began to complain that he was dying. His friends, noticing this, rushed over and tried to help him at that moment. After school, Minye Yuesheng and Hui Ming walked home together, laughing and having fun, discussing what happened. They enjoyed the moment, not paying attention to the troubles. Yuesheng smiled and told the sixth prince that he was very cool, despite the absurdity of the situation. This amused him, and he praised the prince for his bravery. Huiming said sheepishly that he actually thought Minye was much cooler, since she was the one who knocked down the lamp using her phoenix power, and that was really impressive. Minye froze and thought that it was better not to discuss such things out loud, because others might hear. Her brother also pointed out that if this was revealed, she would not escape punishment. Haiming, realizing that it was better to remain silent, said that he would not talk about it anymore. At this time, the gentleman approached them, and everyone quickly fell silent so as not to give themselves away. Xingmu informed his father that they had arrived, and everyone was very happy to meet him. Minye immediately rushed to her father, smiling and happy to see him. Her father picked her up and asked her how her first day at school had been, wondering if everything was okay. He was caring and wanted to know how she was feeling. Minye reported that she was fine, to which her older brother immediately responded, confirming that there were no problems and everything was going as planned. Yuesheng confidently said that of course she was fine, since she was under his protection. This meant that there would be no trouble or problems in the near future. Chu Pei noticed with a smile that his son was speaking very loudly and expressively, which caused him slight surprise and joy from observing such bright moments. The gentleman heard someone pay him respects by calling him emperor and adding a wish for long years of health. This was part of the usual etiquette that he knew. Chu Pei asked permission to congratulate the sixth prince on his admission to the academy, wishing to express his best wishes and support for this important event in the prince's life. Minye could not even imagine that her father, despite all his virtues, would die in the future at the hands of this sweet, seemingly harmless young man. The father noticed that the day was drawing to an end, and it was starting to get dark, so he suggested that everyone turn back so that they could get home before nightfall and finish their work. Haiming approached the girl, inviting her to stay with him today. He suggested that she might want to spend time in his company, as the evening was still young. Huiming asked Minye not to leave, assuring her that they would definitely return. He was full of hope and anxiety, hoping that their return together would be successful. Minye changed the direction of her manhua departure arc, setting the beginning of summer to the festival. This meant that Peach Bun was the only option for their next move. Although the problem was solved, it did not mean a complete victory, and the task was not completed. They planned to continue their efforts to achieve success in the future. Without further action, Huiming risked death at the hands of concubine Jin, who was prepared to take his life unless decisive steps were taken. Minye, worried, asked her father again if it was possible for her to stay with the sixth prince. She hoped for his support in this important matter. Father strongly advised against staying overnight in the outer chambers, called the Cold Palace. This place was reserved for the emperor's concubines and was dangerous for everyone. Haiming, with tears in his eyes, begged her not to leave. He could not accept the thought of her separation, sincerely asking her to stay by his side despite all the difficulties. Minye, despite his resistance, asked her father to allow her to stay, at least for one night, hoping that he would understand her feelings and allow this compromise. Her father, however, was adamantly against it, feeling that it was too risky and inappropriate. He could not agree, although he was concerned about her wishes. Minye was very upset by the rejection and her older brother Xing Mu immediately noticed her sadness. He tried to calm his sister down by offering a solution that could help. Xing Mu suggested staying with his sister and keeping an eye on what was going on. Yue Sheng, noticing the suggestion, supported him, assuring him that everything would be fine and there would be no problems. Min Ye realized that this meant that she could actually stay with the prince. Everything had turned out so that her wishes could finally be fulfilled, and she felt relieved. The prince insistently asked the Lord to agree, and this created difficulties for Chu Pei. It was difficult for him to refuse the request, knowing how important this moment was for everyone. Chu Pei, realizing the importance of the situation, said that he would go and make arrangements for their convenience. This was considered an excellent decision, and everyone began to prepare for what was to come. Min Ye told Xing Mu about concubine Jin and her plans to poison Li Anming. She was afraid that their protection would not be enough to prevent the threat. Min Ye knew that even if she wanted to protect Hui Ming, she couldn't stay in the cold palace forever. This would create additional complications in her plans. Hai Ming noticed that if someone could be around all the time, such problems would not arise. He was waiting for someone to solve this problem for their protection. Xing Mu suggested that they look for a long-term solution to the problem. They needed to find a patron for the prince, and that would solve most of their worries and concerns. The most powerful figure in the harem is the queen. If she supports Hui Ming, concubine, Jin will be unable to do anything, and the prince will be safe. Min Ye thought for a moment and realized that she had completely forgotten about the queen. She didn't understand how this had happened, but now it was important to correct the mistake. Min Ye decided that she would seek support from the queen. The prince did not object to this decision, realizing that it was an important step for their common safety. Xing Mu interrupted their conversation and asked how they were going to do this. The queen was a Buddhist, and although she seemed cold, she was actually a kind-hearted person. Xing Mu noted that the queen had lost her mother at an early age, just like Hui Ming. If he showed his best side, she would definitely support and favor him. Xing Mu noted that he was not familiar with the queen, and he did not understand how Min Ye could be so confident in her reaction. He did not know where she got such information. Min Ye explained that she would simply assume that she had supernatural powers. She had read the original work and knew how things would play out. Xing Mu was shocked and couldn't believe his ears. He couldn't understand how such a power could exist, since it allowed Min Ye to predict people's futures. Meanwhile, Yue Sheng brought a huge watermelon, and everyone could not understand where he got it from. His action left everyone surprised, but the watermelon was a real surprise. Yue Sheng said that he made this watermelon himself at school, and it was a really interesting and cool result. Everyone was happy to see it and immediately tried it. Everyone was happy because they could now enjoy this watermelon, and the moment was made even sweeter by its presence. The watermelon was a great addition. However, Xing Mu suspected that the watermelon might have come from the school storeroom, and that they would have to pay for it the next day. This made him doubtful. Despite the suspicions, everyone decided to just enjoy the moment and share the watermelon. In the end, it was what brightened their day. Yu Sheng, being attentive, noticed that someone else might be nearby. He expressed his confidence that something was happening in that direction, and it required attention. Min Ye immediately realized that something was wrong, and suspected that it was probably the eunuch who had returned. His presence did not bode well, and she was on guard. Hai Ming, noticing her anxiety, assured everyone that there was no need to be afraid. They were enough to fight off any possible threat, and he was ready to act. Yu Sheng noticed that if someone decided to bully them, he would take care of them so that even their parents would not recognize them. He was willing to do anything to protect them. Xing Mu, on the other hand, thought about what would happen if he was hit, and realized that he would have to bear the responsibility. He didn't think it would be that easy. The older brother, realizing the danger, said he had a better plan. He was confident that he could resolve the situation more effectively. They began to discuss the details of the plan, confident that they were prepared. Everything was ready, and they felt that the next moment they would be able to act. Haiming was very angry at those who tried to ruin his face. He was not going to let them go easily and promised to do everything to make them suffer. He ordered his guards to find all the culprits and punish them. The search began, and everyone was ready to act to quickly deal with this threat. The man told the eunuch that they seemed to have found someone. This news caused alarm, and everyone prepared for a possible encounter with the intruders. When they looked into the bushes, they saw a blue fire and Huiming, who looked quite terrifying. All this left a strong impression on them. Everyone immediately became scared and started running in panic, and the eunuch, being very scared, did not manage to escape in time. This added even more chaos to the situation. As the guards were trying to escape, someone threw them a watermelon rind, and they slipped, causing a comical and unexpected fall for all involved. Li Anming screamed, accusing everyone of being demons. The prince, frightened and terrified, lay on the floor, begging to be saved, not knowing what to do in such a situation. The prince screamed again, demanding that no one come near him. He desperately tried to drive everyone away, locked in his panic, forbidding anyone to come near, and afraid that they would harm him. Soon the prince noticed that drops of red color were dripping on his face, but he could not understand where they came from. Not knowing the reason for this, he became even more worried and frightened. The prince looked up and saw that there was someone on top of him. This sight completely frightened him, and with even greater fear, he began to try to free himself from this person. It was Xing Mu. The man, in fear, began to run away, begging not to be killed. He claimed that he was a good person and that his actions were actually harmless and kind. The children, seeing this situation, began to laugh, which was unexpected and funny. Min Ye, who was also supposed to go out, was already ready, but managed to run away before this happened. Xing Mu said that it was quite difficult to see the queen during normal times. Usually she can only be seen on holidays, but every 5th day of the month she goes to the temple. Yu Sheng noticed that tomorrow was the 5th. It was tomorrow that the queen would pass by the academy after school, and if they didn't make it, they would have to wait a month. Min Ye suggested that tomorrow they should definitely ask the queen for Huiming's patronage. This became their main goal for the near future, to help him. Xing Mu thought that it would not be so difficult to gain the queen's favor. To do this, the prince would have to look as poor and miserable as possible to evoke sympathy. Yu Sheng said that he understood they would need to throw the half-dead Huiming at the queen's feet, and then she would definitely move and respond to their request for help. Huiming objected, saying that he didn't need to be beaten. The girl began to ask what he meant, why he was saying such strange things that didn't make sense. Xing Mu, hearing this, exclaimed that no one had said anything stupid, and that if Huiming wanted, he would deal with him himself first, so that everything would go according to plan. He explained that they needed to make Huiming look as miserable and pathetic as possible, so that the concubine would get angry and start torturing him again, which would attract the queen's attention. At this moment, Min Ye will be able to pitifully ask the queen to protect Huiming, evoking her mercy and willingness to help in a difficult situation to change his fate. Min Ye noticed that this was indeed a good idea, and so she confidently stated that her brother could be relied upon in such an important matter as helping Huiming. Min Ye also added that she just wants the concubine who wronged the 6th prince to get what she deserves for her actions so that justice can be restored. Huiming said that there was no need to worry because everything would be fine. He was confident that they would handle the situation and everything would be resolved without problems. Xing Mu explained the plan for tomorrow to everyone. Meanwhile, in the Guihua Palace, the eunuch was beating his servant, dissatisfied with his incompetence and failure to complete the task. The eunuch was angry that the servant could not cope with the child and dared to return, considering him useless and unreliable, completely disappointed with his actions. Li Anming begged the lady to spare him, claiming that he was surrounded by demons that were about to swallow him whole and that he needed to leave immediately. The woman, not believing his words, kicked him and told him to stop talking nonsense. She did not understand what demons he was talking about and told him to go back to the southeast. Li Anming tried to persuade her again, explaining that there were indeed demons around and that those blue lights and drops of blood on his face were evidence that they were in danger. The eunuch chuckled and asked if Li Anming was really so stupid that he couldn't tell the difference between red ink and real blood. She doubted his story. Li Anming was shocked that it was just red ink, and he was deceived. He couldn't believe that he had ended up in such a ridiculous situation. The servant asked the mistress to calm down. It was all because of that idiot who couldn't deal with the sixth prince these days, perhaps the product of someone's spiritual energy. Everything was calm. The demon couldn't appear. So suddenly it seems that it was the sixth prince himself who did everything to sow chaos. The woman said that the child was just a piece of trash. He had been watched since birth. It was impossible for him to have the power of a holy beast. The man said that the old master didn't mean that it didn't matter. Only the sixth principle possessed the power of the holy beast. She just had to convey that someone was chasing her in the cold palace, but strongly take him to the magical arts department and introduce a trusted person to him. Then the goal would be achieved. The lady noted that the actions in question were indeed logical, and it seemed to mean that the person would definitely not be able to survive in this situation. However, it turned out that the emperor was not a problem. The lady was going to meet with the representative of the magic arts department. Immediately, there was no concern about the emperor. She gave the order to go to the palace with the troops. Meanwhile, the children, despite the late hour, were already asleep, but Xing Mu could not sleep. He was alert and could not rest peacefully. Xing Mu sat at the table, his eyes gradually closing from fatigue, but soon he heard shouts that they were surrounded. An alarm was sounded, and everyone was forbidden to leave the room. He realized that they were surrounded by a fairly large group and quickly began trying to wake the others up so that they would be ready for possible action. Min Ye was frightened by what was happening, and Yue Sheng could not wake up, continuing to sleep and not realizing the seriousness of the situation. He asked them not to make noise, as it was too early, and he did not want to get up. Besides, he did not want to go to school despite what was happening. At this time, strangers entered the room and headed towards the sixth prince, but upon seeing him, they realized that there were other heirs in the room, which added to the anxiety. Xing Mu immediately noticed a girl he had never seen before. He realized that she was probably Emperor Jin's adopted daughter, even though he had never met her before. Xing Mu turned to the man and asked what brought them to this cold palace at such a late hour, especially with nights. He noticed that the situation seemed unusual. The man replied that they had heard rumors of demons supposedly living in the cold palace and suspected that someone might be using the power of the holy beast. So they brought a specialist from the Department of Magical Arts with them to figure out what was going on and find out if there was a threat associated with it. The situation became more complicated, and the girl began to worry greatly, realizing that the events unfolding in the cold palace could be much more dangerous than they had assumed. Li Anming claimed that there were no ghosts, that it was all a setup to scare him to death. He claimed that he was not finished with those who had done this. The eunuch turned to him and said that the word was not given, and the master must find out whether the children possessed the power of the sacred beast or not before drawing conclusions. The Lord approached the sixth prince and his uncles, asking which of them was willing to be the first to test their strength. He was determined to act decisively and quickly. The eunuch suggested starting with the youngest in seniority. Everyone agreed, but they were a little nervous, so the sixth prince stood up first, preparing for the test. A strong emotion engulfed those present, but the sixth prince stood resolutely in front of the youngest. Everyone waited for his reaction, hoping for his confidence and strength. The prince declared that he did not need to undergo the test because he already possessed the power of a sacred beast. Everyone around him was shocked by his confident words. The eunuch insisted on testing, claiming that the master must verify the prince's words. No words could change the decision, and the test continued. The man confirmed that the sixth prince did indeed possess the power of the fire phoenix. This astonished everyone, as few expected such a development. Min Ye couldn't believe it. It seemed impossible. Now it was clear that they were trying to frame the prince, and it was extremely dishonest of them. The servant congratulated the sixth prince on his strength and reminded him that all children who possess the power of a sacred beast must serve the state in the interests of the emperor. The servant informed him that the prince must go to the Department of Magical Arts. He cannot participate in conflicts and must avoid inappropriate treatment. When the prince said goodbye to his little sister, he noticed her sadness. The girl was upset, not wanting him to leave, and was ready to do everything to stop him. The girl wanted to use the power of the divine beast to help her brother, but her older brother stopped her. He knew that it would lead to great consequences. She hung her head in despair. Her brother was furious, knowing that if she used her power now, all her abilities would be revealed, and it would ruin everything. Min Ye apologized, but she couldn't stand idly by. She was afraid for the prince's life and was sure that without magic power, he would not survive this ordeal. Min Ye decided that she should confess and go with them, instead of the prince hoping that her sacrifice would save his life and bring at least some result. The brother was furious and raised his hand to punish her, but seeing her bitter tears, he softened and stroked her head, realizing the gravity of the situation. Xingmu asked Min Ye if she had thought about her father's feelings. He reminded her that if she was captured, the consequences would be disastrous for the entire family. He added that the prince would not be released, as the plan was to kill him from the start. Min Ye would only become another victim in their unfair game. Min Ye was at a loss as to what to do, and tried to somehow convince her brother that there were other ways to avoid this horrific outcome. Xingmu said that he himself did not know what to do, and lowered his head. Without any options, they were doomed, and it was difficult for him to find a solution. Yu Sheng was in despair, seeing that even their smart brother did not know what to do. She felt that their end was near, and there was no hope left. The concubine received news that the sixth prince was being taken to the Department of Magical Arts. His powers were not detected, and magic spells would be used on him tomorrow. The woman said that everything was clear, and now he could go. There was no pity in her eyes, no doubt about the correctness of their actions. He expressed his concern about the other children. When they came for the sixth prince, 3 of the prince's children were in the room with him, which made him wary. The woman remarked that if the prince did not have the power, then one of the children did. This raised doubts, especially concerning the recently adopted girl. The woman suggested that the girl recently adopted by the prince might be the one with the power. Her power might be what they were looking for. The servant added that the prince's sons had already been tested, and their powers had not been detected. Therefore, the girl may have been the possessor of the power. The woman asked who she was, since her strength had not yet been tested. Anxiety grew within her, and she prepared to act without delay. The woman said that Min Ye probably had power, and that did not bode well. She was willing to spare the prince that risk. The woman added that they needed to get rid of Min Ye as quickly as possible. Her strength could be dangerous, especially if she was the daughter of a prince. The servant promised to send guards for the girl tomorrow. It was important to act quickly before something unexpected happened. The woman insisted that she needed to be captured without delay to avoid problems with the prince. The main thing was to resolve the issue with the prince and not complicate the situation. She added that if they captured the girl, it would definitely cause concern for the prince, and this would lead to unpredictable consequences for their plan. The servant tried to object, but the woman said that if they didn't eliminate Min Ye, their plans would definitely fail. He should have realized that. The woman said they could get started at sunrise. They had to make sure everything was going according to plan in the magical arts department. The woman ordered everyone to immediately head to the department. Xing Mu reported that the palace was ready and they could act without delay. Xu Pei was quite surprised to see that the children were already awake. This seemed strange to him. Since it was early, Xing Mu was also surprised and asked his father what he was doing here, so early, not expecting his visit. Yu Sheng, without hiding his thoughtfulness, explained that they were just about to go to their father. This coincidence caused a slight confusion in everyone. However, Xu Pei could not shake off the feeling of unease. To make sure that the children would be okay, he decided to take them home as soon as the palace became accessible to the public. Min Ye couldn't contain her emotions and rushed to her father. She excitedly told him that Huiming had been in trouble, and she urgently needed his help to try to help him. Xu Pei, noticing his daughter's agitation, excitedly asked what had happened to Huiming, trying to understand the seriousness of the situation. Min Ye quickly explained that Huiming had been captured and taken to the magic arts department, where they were going to perform dangerous spells on him. She added that it was the eunuch Li Anhai who did this, claiming that Huiming had the power of a sacred beast. The soldiers were probably torturing him now. The girl anxiously emphasized the urgent need to save the prince. Xu Pei felt the desire to help, but was afraid to get involved in a conflict involving the powers of sacred beasts again. He also feared for the safety of his children. Min Ye, with a worried expression on her face, said that the sixth prince had sacrificed himself to save her. If it weren't for his sacrifice, she would have fallen into the enemy's hands long ago. Xu Pei sighed regretfully and said firmly that the situation was too dangerous. He decided that they needed to return home immediately to avoid unnecessary risks. Despair overwhelmed Min Ye, and she fell to her knees in front of her father. With tears in her eyes, she begged him to save the sixth prince, claiming that it was not only for his sake, but also for their family. The father was shocked by his daughter's behavior. Her sincere requests made him feel uneasy for the first time and thought about the significance of her words. Yu Sheng joined his sister's pleas, saying that the sixth prince had shown incredible courage. Thanks to his actions, Min Ye's strength remained a secret to those around him. Xing Mu, without hiding his respect, added that they were all immensely grateful to the sixth prince. He persistently asked his father to help him, since he truly deserved it. The father noticed that the children had suddenly matured. Their words and actions showed not only responsibility in them, but also a sincere attachment to noble deeds. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, the father made a decision. He was not a man who could forget kindness or leave someone to die. Therefore, he firmly promised to save the sixth prince. Hearing this, the girl could not help but smile. Her heart was filled with gratitude, and she sincerely thanked her father for his wisdom and support. Xu Pei briefly informed them that they were going to an important place. After that, he confidently led everyone along, without going into unnecessary details. Yu Sheng, a little puzzled, asked his brother what they should do now and where they were going. Xing Mu replied that they should study and wait for news from their father. At this time, everyone in the Department of Magical Arts believed that the sixth prince would definitely receive help. He was absolutely sure of this and had no doubt that the outcome would be favorable. He thought that the people he was expecting had come for him, but instead the door opened and a man connected to this case walked in. Huiming realized that the alarm was false. Hearing that the sixth prince had already woken up, the man was delighted and said that they should now proceed to the spell room. His tone was unyielding. Huiming refused to go, saying he was hungry. He would first demand food and then agree to follow them. Huiming also stated that he was not going to go without the presence of his mentor. The man chuckled and asked sarcastically if he thought his status here mattered to anyone. The prince, without changing his position, firmly said that they could beat him to death, but until he ate, he would not move from the spot. The man got angry, grabbed him by the neck, and warned him that he was being too impudent. He added that there was nothing to stop him from killing him right now. In his mind, the man already imagined how to deal with him. He decided that everything was simple. Kill the prince, and then pretend that it was the result of magical influence. With a cruel grin, he said that the prince's life was of no importance to anyone, so he would be quietly sent to the next world, and no one would even notice. Suddenly, the prince, gathering all his courage, bit the man on the arm. The man howled in pain and instinctively let go. In a rage, the man pushed the prince, who hit the wall with force. The anger in the man's eyes became even brighter. The man was ready to deliver the decisive blow, but the prince suddenly rushed forward and hit him in the legs with his head. The blow was so strong that the man fell to the floor. The pain paralyzed him, and he could not even move. The security guards burst into the room. At the noise, they looked at the lying man and asked in surprise what had happened. The man writhed on the floor, and the guards, looking at each other, tried to understand what exactly their master meant, since he could not explain anything. Taking advantage of the general confusion, the sixth prince began to run away unnoticed. The man, through the pain, tried to say something but could not. Finally, the man gathered his strength and shouted for the guards to look back as the prince was running away. However, when they turned around, they did not see him. The master, irritated by their inaction, ordered that the fugitive be found and seized immediately. The guards rushed after him, hoping to catch him quickly. Changjin sat in his quiet corner, enjoying the solitude. He loved the warmth of the cup of tea in his hands, the fragrance filling the space, and the harmony emanating from the surrounding flowers. It was a moment of true bliss, but suddenly, the idyll was broken by a sharp sound. Changjin choked on his tea, hearing the clatter of hooves. Someone was approaching. Such an unexpected intrusion into his world caused concern. Soon he saw the guests. It was Minya and her father. The girl did not hide her joy at meeting the teacher. Her smile lit up her face, and her eyes sparkled with delight. However, the joy of the meeting was marred. Changjin noticed that part of his flower field was damaged. This loss saddened him because he put his soul into this place. Xu Pei immediately turned to him, saying that he needed to act quickly. However, Changjin, immersed in his emotions, seemed not to hear his words, waving off his hasty requests. His anger was directed at the culprit of the incident, the horse that trampled the flowers. Changjin was loudly indignant, demanding an explanation and asking when Xu Pei would finally learn to respect the work of others. In response, Xu Pei apologized and promised to compensate for the damage. He emphasized that the situation was urgent and that he desperately needed Changjin's help, almost begging him for assistance. Minya, supporting her father, sincerely insisted that Changjin simply had to help the sixth prince. Her words were reserved, but there was a hint of anxiety in her voice. Changjin was confused. He tried to understand what was going on and what they were planning. His wariness grew, and he demanded clarification. They said that the sixth prince had been wrongly accused. The people from the magic department suspected that he had the power of a sacred beast and captured him based on that suspicion alone. However, Changjin couldn't understand how all this related to him. He felt like he was being dragged into other people's problems for no good reason. Xu Pei explained that Changjin was a renowned master of the holy arts. His reputation would help if he agreed to go with them to the sacred magic department to assess the prince's abilities. But Changjin couldn't just agree. He had once spoken out against the magic department, and now he couldn't go back there. For him, it was the same as death. Besides, the magic department brought back unpleasant memories for him. It was a place that held too many horrors, and returning there would be a great trial for him. Minya anxiously reminded them that time was short. If they did not hurry, the sixth prince would be arrested, and then it would be too late to change anything. Changjin firmly stated that he was only a hermit with knowledge of the holy beasts, but was unable to influence the fate of others. He sympathized with the prince, but could not help. Despite his words, Minya continued to beg him. Her eyes, full of pleading, looked at the teacher with hope, causing him to have an internal conflict. Xu Pei reassured his daughter, assuring her that he would convince the teacher. His confidence sounded firm, but a sly intent flashed in his eyes. Xu Pei approached. Changjin clapped him on the shoulder and said something encouraging. However, his actions soon showed that the persuasion was rougher than it seemed. Xu Pei noted with irony that his method of persuasion had been effective. He literally knocked out Chang Jin so that he would not resist. Xu Pei told Min Ye to mount his horse, emphasizing that they had to go and rescue the prince immediately. There was no more time to think. The girl, concerned about the weight, asked if the horse could support 3 people. Her doubts seemed logical, given the journey ahead. Xu Pei assured her, with a smile, that their horse named Jade was the #1 horse in Daqi and would easily handle the task. Nephrite was Xu Pei's favorite horse, and he was confident in its strength. This noble beast had proven its endurance and reliability more than once. Meanwhile, the 6th prince continued his escape, pursued by guards who seemed to have no intention of giving up. But suddenly he found himself trapped. The prince realized that his escape route was blocked and felt that his situation was hopeless. The guards, breathing heavily from the long chase, said he had nowhere else to run. They were tired and wanted him to surrender voluntarily. They tried to convince him that resistance was pointless. He would not be harmed if he simply followed them. He had been warned that force would be used if he did not comply. He had to go with them anyway. It was inevitable. But then Huiming shouted that his father was here. The guards froze, assuming he was talking about the emperor. Fear instantly appeared on their faces. They immediately bowed, greeting the supposed emperor. Huiming, taking advantage of the situation, thought what naive fools they were. He asked them with a grin, as he ran, who they were greeting, since there was no one nearby. His trick worked, and he continued his escape. But the deception was soon revealed. The prince found himself cornered, and his tricks were no longer effective. His hopes were fading. In his panic, he bumped into someone. It was a eunuch who immediately blocked his path. The situation changed dramatically. The eunuch said that he had finally found the prince. His search had been long and difficult. He emphasized that everyone was worried about his fate. But Huiming met his words with irritation. He shouted, accusing the eunuch of hypocrisy, calling him an evil old man who could not be trusted. The man calmly replied that none of this mattered. The prince had to go with him, as the holy magician was already waiting for him. But the prince refused to obey, which prompted the eunuch to threaten that if he continued to be stubborn, slavery and even greater humiliation awaited him. Huiming couldn't understand where Min Ye was and why she wasn't there to save him. The hope for help was fading with each passing second. Despite all the assurances, Yue Sheng once again shared his worries with his brother. He admitted that he was still worried about the current situation because the well-being of their family was at stake. Xing Mu, trying to calm her brother down, noted that since their father had taken on the task, they could relax. His skills and experience were so outstanding that there was simply no doubt about success. She added that her father would not only complete the task, but would do it without a single mistake. He would definitely return with their sister safe and sound, because it was his strength and determination that had always saved their family. Xing Mu also reminded Yue Sheng that his main task today was to go home, get ready and go to school. She emphasized that he should not be distracted or cause unnecessary trouble now. Brother also pointed out that it was important for them to strictly adhere to their plan. All they could do was patiently wait for their sister and the 6th prince's master to return while remaining calm. He added that if their efforts were in vain today, the situation would become even worse. The concubine was ready to do anything for her goals, sparing neither effort nor means. Yue Xing understood the seriousness of what was happening. He had been strictly instructed not to get into trouble because part of the overall plan depended on him, and it was important not to let the family down. In response, Yue Sheng firmly promised that he would do his best. He vowed that he would not make any mistakes and would study hard, fully concentrating on his duties. It was time to go to school. The elder brother walked Yue Sheng to the door, wishing him a good day and reminding him that everything would be fine if everyone did their job. Meanwhile, Xu Pei, urging on his trusty horse, quickly reached the palace where the sacred magic department was located. His goal was to resolve an urgent matter. Turning to the girl, he said that they were almost there. Min Ye, full of determination, assured that the gentleman would definitely wait for them, because the journey was not long. However, the guards at the palace entrance stopped Chu Pei, informing him that the sacred magic department was closed to visitors today. Their stern tone indicated that compromise was impossible. Chu Pei only hugged his daughter tighter and asked her to hold on, as he was going to jump over the high fence, ignoring the prohibitions. Having overcome the fence, he left the guards no choice, causing them surprise and slight shock. Such a violation was clearly out of the usual order of things. The guards stood there unsure of how to react. They were trying to figure out if it was even possible to jump over the fence, as if it were not an obstacle, but a mere formality. Meanwhile, screams could be heard inside the palace. Huiming was tied up and loudly demanding to be released, his voice echoing throughout the halls. However, the eunuch paid no attention to the pleas. He firmly ordered the work to begin, without wasting time on unnecessary talk and doubts. The man promised to take care of the highness. Li Anming said that the situation was extremely difficult, as the Lord Prince had intervened, and this added problems to their plan. This is an unexpected visit, and despite his intentions, they must act decisively. They cannot delay him any longer. Their goal is to eliminate the prince, because he will not save him. Li Anming assured that there was nothing to fear. The empress herself was patronizing them. They needed to act quickly and decisively because he did not want to contradict his father's will. The sixth prince is in the palace, and they have little time. They must hurry to get to him before it is too late. Li Anming ordered to stop, as entry to this area was strictly prohibited. It is important to follow all the prohibitions, otherwise there may be problems. Chu Pei, displeased, asked who he was trying to persuade the man to move out of the way, but he continued to stand, not intending to give in. Li Anming introduced himself respectfully. He was the head of security responsible for the palace's security, and he had to find out why Chu Pei had come here. Chu Pei, irritated, declared that he did not intend to talk to him and demanded to be let through, not wanting to waste time on unnecessary explanations. The man grabbed his arm tightly, saying that he couldn't let him in. The Department of Sacred Magic was a guarded place, and entry was strictly restricted. Chu Pei angrily shouted that the man was insolent and forcibly pulled his hand out of his grip, continuing to insist on his right to pass. He warned that this was the last time he would ask, but Li Anming again refused to let him through, claiming that it was impossible. The Department of Sacred Magic is secret and reports directly to the Emperor. Even he is not allowed to enter without a good reason. Chu Pei had no intention of stopping, saying that he would still achieve his goal and would not pay attention to the prohibitions, not seeing them as a threat. Li Anming, in response, warned that if Chu Pei did not comply, he would be punished according to the laws and regulations of the guard. The guards approached, ready to take measures to force Chu Pei to comply and not create further problems for the palace. Chu Pei smiled mockingly and said that Li Anming was just a small fry and continued to confidently move forward, unwilling to give up. Li Anming explained that he was doing his duty by guarding the inner hall from outsiders. If anyone tried to enter, he would have no choice but to take action. Li Anming warned that if a battle were to start, the swords could cause harm to anyone, and it was difficult to predict how it would end. As a result of an accidental skirmish, not only people but also horses, and even children, if a fight starts, can be injured. Chu Pei grabbed Li Anming's face and pushed him away, ordering him to stay away from his daughter. He didn't want him to get close to her and was willing to protect her at any cost. Chu Pei told his daughter to hide behind him and close her eyes. He promised that he would only open them when the situation was safe, so that she would not see what was about to happen. Min Ye turned away in fear and closed her eyes. Her heart was beating anxiously. She was worried about what might happen at this dangerous moment. The girl felt how everything around her was filled with tension. Li Anming asked His Highness what he was going to do, noticing how the situation was becoming increasingly tense and threatening. He was looking for an answer, but did not know what to expect. The Lord, as always, calmly and reservedly replied that he did not want his daughter to witness what he was going to do in this dangerous situation. He intended to act decisively. Li Anming, confused, asked what exactly he meant. He did not understand the Lord's motives in this situation and was completely at a loss as to what was happening. Xu Pei couldn't bear it any longer and slapped Li Anming's face, stunned that he dared to threaten him. Xu Pei couldn't understand who this man was, who was acting so brazenly. He saw this man as a waste of space that had no value. His existence only overshadowed the nobleman, and Xu Pei was not going to leave him alone. Xu Pei couldn't understand how this dirty dog dared to threaten him. He was sure that this man had no place in this world, since he was so bold in challenging him. The guards intervened and demanded that Xu Pei take his hands off Li Anming. This caused some confusion, but the guards knew that they had to intervene in the conflict. Xu Pei, without holding back, shouted for everyone to shut up, and this scared the guards. They immediately fell silent, realizing that he was extremely serious. Xu Pei made it clear that it was none of their business. He warned that anyone who dared to interfere with him would be punished. No one could stand in his way. Xu Pei continued to beat Li Anming, not giving him a break. His eyes were blazing with anger, and he was not going to stop until he finished what he had started. After Xu Pei finished, he said that his daughter could open her eyes. Min Ye looked at him and realized that he had received a severe punishment for his impudence. Xu Pei said they could move on. He was satisfied with the result and was ready to continue on his way, confident that they would not hinder him any longer. Xu Pei was very angry because it seemed they still did not want to let him through. This irritated him, and he knew he had to act decisively to convince them. But all the guards quickly moved out of the way, giving him a path. Xu Pei felt some relief, calming down, and making sure that he would not encounter any more obstacles. Changjin fell from his horse and did not understand where he was now. Everything around him seemed vague, and he could not immediately understand what was happening, trying to collect his thoughts. Xu Pei said that it was time for Changjin to wake up, as they had arrived at the sacred magic department. The man was angry, and his words were full of rage, as he began to call the master names. Xu Pei ordered him to stop shouting and follow him. However, Changjin continued to shout, expressing his hatred for his master, which only increased the tension. Meanwhile, the gentleman tried to perform a ritual with the sixth principle, but it did not give in. The magic resisted, and it was clear that not everything was so simple in this process. The eunuch asked why Xu Pei was shouting. He reminded them that they needed to cast the spell quickly because time was running out, and they had to act quickly and efficiently. The man explained that it was not his fault, but the prince simply did not want to cooperate with him, showing stubbornness and ignoring all attempts to negotiate. To achieve the result, he had to be stunned first, and this decision really seemed right, so all that remained was to carry out the plan. The man said that the boy himself forced him to act in this way, which forced him to take a stick and prepare for the next step. He almost swung at the boy, but suddenly, Li Anming's body flew into the hall, which attracted the attention of everyone present and completely changed the course of events. The man was confused, not understanding what had happened, which is why all attention switched to what was happening and to the person who had just appeared. At that moment, the gentleman entered the room with his daughter and Changjin, thereby creating even more tension, which only intensified the situation. Xu Pei said that it was he who was to blame for what happened, and the prince, hearing this, felt joy because his sister Min Ye had finally appeared. The eunuch greeted the prince and asked permission to find out why he had beaten him, which left him puzzled and wanting to sort this matter out. The master, about to enter, found himself in a situation where this servant, using his name, did not allow him to pass, behaving in a manner unbecoming of his rank. Xu Pei, knowing how much the master valued his reputation and how strictly he trained his subordinates, considered it necessary to intervene and put the disobedient one in his place. The man understood that the master would not tolerate such behavior, and that he would definitely intervene to punish the boy for disobedience and disrespect. Li Anhai noticed that His Highness was too merciful to him, despite his insignificance, and felt that the lowly servant deserved to be punished. He also inquired as to why the gentleman was here, and Chu Pei explained that the rumors about the sixth principle of Langun spoke of its connection with the power of the sacred beast. Despite the rumors, Xu Pei doubted their veracity, believing that erroneous assessments could be misleading and should not be accepted as truth without verification. Xu Pei decided to bring in an expert who could conduct a thorough assessment of the sixth prince's abilities in order to avoid possible mistakes and misunderstandings. Mr. Xu Changgen, who used to work in the sacred magic department, was chosen for this mission, and only his assessment could be decisive in this matter. The man was known as a first-rate genius in the magical arts, and his presence in the room only raised the status of everything that was happening, adding importance to the situation. The eunuch greeted the master joyfully, emphasizing his outstanding merits and recognizable name, which was widely known in the sacred magic department. Changjin, however, was not happy to be there. He admitted that his purpose here was to prevent possible evil, although he himself would have preferred to be elsewhere. Conducting an assessment of the sixth prince could guarantee the correctness of the results, and Chu Pei believed that this would provide peace of mind and confidence in the correctness of their actions. Xu Pei was extremely interested in what this man was planning. Everything seemed calm in Lengong, and perhaps the result was truly related to the power of the sacred beast. If it turns out that it is not the sixth prince, then it will mean that they have caught the wrong person, and then their plans will be in jeopardy. The man said that his servant did not understand anything about what was happening. In response, Chu Pei suggested that he test his master's abilities himself to avoid further misunderstandings. The eunuch said that Miss Min Ye was at the scene, and she did not pass the identification. If it turns out that the power of the holy beast is not the sixth principle, it is possible that the lady has it. If he wanted to re-evaluate the sixth prince, he had to allow him to evaluate Miss Min Ye. The gentleman realized that everything that was happening was the result of a curse, and that the cause of all the troubles was this eunuch who, with his presence, was spoiling everything, destroying the peace. At the training ground, Chen Yuerui was very tired, and besides, he still had to do archery, which seemed like a trifle. Everything was not going according to plan, and his patience was running out. He noticed Yue Sheng and quickly came up with a way to distract himself. He started to pretend that he was very dizzy to avoid the arrow, and he continued to spin around. Chen aimed at Yue Sheng and accidentally fired an arrow, which miraculously hit him right in the hat, although it could have hit him in the head if he had not ducked in time. Yue Sheng couldn't understand what was going on. He shouted, asking what Chen was doing and where he was aiming. He didn't believe that he missed by accident and thought that he was shooting on purpose. Chen Yuerui tried to justify himself by saying that it was an accident, although in fact he knew for sure that he never missed, even if it looked like a mistake. Yu Sheng was indignant and said that he had asked for it, was ready to deal with him with the intention of settling the matter with his fists if Chen did not calm down and apologize. Chen Yuerui was not embarrassed to suggest a duel, as he was bored and had nothing to do. He calmly said that he would be happy to arrange a fight if Yue Sheng was so inclined. However, Yue Sheng suddenly remembered his elder brother's advice to avoid conflicts and not to create unnecessary problems. He decided to give up the fight. Yu Sheng admitted his mistake, apologized, and said that it was his fault. He decided to step aside so as not to interfere and return to training so as not to continue the conflict. Chen Yuerui was shocked by these words and could not understand what was happening. He looked at Yue Sheng, leaving in surprise, and did not know what to do with the situation. In shock, he turned to his friends, asking how he could just speak to him so formally. His friends were also confused and did not know what to think. They said it was very strange, because they had never heard Yue Sheng address them in such a way. Everyone was puzzled, because the guy was always straightforward and decisive. Chen Yuerui couldn't believe that this guy seemed to have gone crazy. He thought that there was something wrong with his head, and it was definitely related to his behavior. Chen was sure that Yue Sheng had either gone crazy or had been bewitched by someone. He felt that he was too quiet today and was sure that he was plotting something. Suddenly, Chen had an idea. He realized that he could use this situation to test Yue Sheng and get him to talk. This would give him a chance to have fun. It was time for a break in training, and Chen and the others decided to take a break before continuing their training. He was thinking about how he should proceed and what to do about this situation. Time passed slowly, and the training process never ended. Chen thought about how his father and sister were doing while he was absorbed in his training and thoughts. The fifth prince approached Yue Sheng and said that he had often seen his actions as a challenge. Now he was ready to accept this challenge and decide who was stronger by engaging in combat with him. Yu Sheng, however, admitted that he did not want to continue the fight. He decided that admitting defeat was the best option, and there was no need for a fight since his conscience was clear. Chen Yerui laughed, saying that Yue Sheng was wrong if he thought he could avoid the taste of defeat. He had to learn what it was like to fall and what it was like to be in a vulnerable position. The boys started shouting and calling others because they all knew that the fifth prince was going to fight Yue Sheng. They were all excited and couldn't wait for the fight to begin. Everyone around was happy because everyone was expecting a spectacular clash. The prince's friends were in anticipation, predicting that the real spectacle would soon begin. Yu Sheng, trying to avoid the fight, began to run. But the others did not let him go and pushed him back. The prince was already ready to strike the first blow to start the fight. Yu Sheng tried to defend himself, using all his strength to repel the attacks, while the prince continued to insist on his own not giving him the slightest chance. The prince continued to provoke Yue Sheng, asking why he was only defending himself. He insisted that Yue Sheng should attack, not defend, if he wanted to win. Yu Sheng knew that he couldn't act recklessly. He was in deep thought, recalling his elder brother's advice to be careful when fighting. He knew he had to fight back, but he had to restrain himself. His brother had told him more than once that he had to keep his wits about him and not rush into battle without reason. Elsewhere in the sacred magic department, the eunuch reported that they now had to obtain the prince's permission to test the mistress's ability, which concerned his daughter. He insisted that the prince should allow further research into the sixth prince's abilities, and therefore asked him to return home since everything had already been decided. Haiming supported these words, confirming that he had used the powers of the sacred beast and was now asking for his sister to return home, leaving all of this behind. Min Ye, however, remained firm, stating that she would not go anywhere and would continue to fight for her rights despite the pressure from others. Changjin, seeing the argument, told everyone to stop arguing and decided to find out for himself whether the prince really had the powers of a sacred beast or whether it was just rumors. Changjin started to check when suddenly Chu Pei shouted at him to wait because something was wrong, and she didn't want to rush to conclusions. Changjin reported that the check was complete, and according to him, the prince did not possess the powers of a sacred beast. He suggested that if anyone had any doubts, they should call other magic casters to confirm. The eunuch said that no more tests were required, and that they might have made a mistake, but that the lady must now also undergo an assessment of her ability. Xu Pei was very disappointed and angry at Chang'an. The eunuch tried to calm her down, saying that the test was important and Madame Min Ye should be ready for the next stage. The gentleman apologized, explaining that he had to conduct a check and was now waiting for Min Ye to take part in the next stage of testing. He turned to the prince and asked if he really intended to listen to his greatest command, since the emperor himself had ordered an investigation into this matter. According to the emperor's decree, Lady Min Ye must undergo a test to prove her abilities. This order was inevitable, and her participation in the tests became mandatory. The cunning eunuch, by mentioning the emperor's decree, deliberately uses it to put pressure on Min. Yet he clearly expects that his words will have a strong influence on her decision. If His Highness is inconvenienced by this, then he is nobody to tell him what to do. If he says that the lady has no ability, then he can certainly be trusted. He, an old slave, does not dare to persecute the lady. Changjin didn't understand at all why they shouldn't conduct an investigation. She thought that he probably wanted to collude and deceive the emperor to avoid punishment. This crime is strictly punishable by death, which made her even more angry. Chu Pei, seeing her displeasure, pushed her, making her understand that an investigation was necessary. Changjin agreed that if they did not want to conduct an investigation, then she would take on the task herself, not wanting to be an accomplice to their criminal conspiracy. The master was very angry at her for her actions. However, after conducting an inspection, he reported that Miss Min Ye also did not have the power of a sacred beast like the others. The eunuch was completely horrified, and not believing it, asked how it was even possible that she did not have this power if she was considered an important figure in this house. He asked her to see for herself what had happened and also carry out the necessary checks to make sure the results were accurate, because something was clearly wrong. Chu Pei tried to stop her, not wanting the situation to get worse, but Changjin insisted, arguing that she had to do it since she couldn't be wrong in her conclusions. The man who was watching the inspection said that it seemed that the lady really did not have the ability of a sacred beast. This caused even more dissatisfaction among everyone present. The eunuch, unwilling to accept vague answers, was furious. He demanded a clear and precise conclusion, asking if she had the ability and not just guesses. The man said again that he would check again to be sure, and only then would he give a final answer so that there would be no doubt about his words. After rechecking, nothing had changed. The man reported that the lady really did not have any magical abilities, as was said earlier. Mr. Li angrily asked if this was true and demanded a precise answer. He began to think that the man might be trying to deceive him by hiding the truth. But the man replied that if he was lying, then let heaven and earth turn around. He added that if the master did not believe him, he could ask other magicians to check. Chu Pei, increasingly irritated, shouted at him to ask if there was anything else the man wanted to say and why he couldn't just admit a fact that was already obvious. The man fell to his knees and began to beg for forgiveness. He had been deceived by Zhao Wuzheng and believed that the sixth prince had magical abilities. His incompetence almost led to irreparable consequences. He asks the master to fry over the insignificant life of a miserable slave. The prince has incomparable prudence. He thanks him because, with his help, he, an unworthy slave, did not commit evil. Therefore he bows before him. Even if he was deceived by the master and thought that the sixth prince had the power of the sacred beast, as the head of the sacred magic department, he would face the death penalty. Not to mention that he groundlessly accused his daughter. He would not have enough heads to pay for his sins. The eunuch said that he was worthless. He was blind. His ignorance had reached its limits. His leadership was terrible. He deserved 10,000 deaths, and he just wanted a chance to redeem himself. Chu Pei said he was happy with the current state of affairs. This time, he said almost nothing, but warned that if he tried to harm his daughter again, he would not escape punishment. Min Ye noticed that this meant that they could bring the sixth prince home. All this gave hope that this unpleasant incident would soon end and things would return to normal. The man did not answer immediately, and then Chu Pei nudged him, reminding him that his daughter had asked a question. He was expecting a more specific answer that could clarify the current situation. The man finally replied that of course he agreed. He also asked that the guards accompany the sixth prince to the palace to ensure his safety on the way. Min Ye told him that they could go back already. The prince was in tears. The prince's state was anxious. He could not calmly survive what he had experienced. Everything was too unexpected for him. He was shocked to learn who saved him, and his father said that they had to go as time was running out. It was time to finish this stage and move on without putting off important matters. The eunuch could not be mistaken, and the girl really did not possess the power of a sacred beast. This became obvious, despite all the previous doubts and guesses that someone might have had. Xu Pei became interested and asked Changjin what it was and why they hadn't found the power of the sacred beast in his daughter. The question was important and required an explanation. Changjin replied that while training her, he sealed her powers with a secret technique. This step was done at his discretion to hide her true power from prying eyes. Thus, only high-level magic could detect her magical abilities. Ordinary magicians would be powerless against such a technique. This explained why no one noticed her power. Xu Pei was completely confused and did not understand why he was not told about this before. After all, he himself saw how scared the gentleman was when he learned the truth, and this was an important point. Changjin explained that he had acted as he did because he deserved it. He had brought Xu Pei here without consent, and now all those repressed memories had come back to him, influencing his actions. Changjin said he wanted a duel, and Xu Pei was shocked, asking again because he thought he had just heard something incredible. It was completely unexpected. Min Ye asked the teacher if this meant that even if she used the power of the sacred beast, she would still not be detected. She wanted to confirm the details before she did anything. Huiming said it was very cool because his sister had become even stronger. He was happy with her success and proud of how she was developing, which brought him a lot of positive emotions. Her father told her that she should have been more reserved when she was almost discovered. He was worried about her, and his heart literally broke with worry that everything could have ended differently. Min Ye promised that she would be careful and did not want him to worry about her. She felt responsible, but at the same time, she tried to reassure him, promising to be considerate. A lot had happened today, and now they needed a good rest. They could eat when they got back to the palace and relax a little after everything that had happened, which had taken a lot of energy. Min Ye said she didn't agree with this. Despite everything that had happened, she still wanted to go back to school. The prince said he would go with his little sister, supporting her in this decision. Her father agreed and said that he would meet her after school. At the same time, the fifth prince continued to beat Yue Sheng, and this incident did not go unnoticed, which added to the tension. The fifth prince said that Yue Sheng was too weak, and before he shouted very fiercely, but he was such a rude person. Everyone started saying that the fifth prince was so strong that the guy didn't have the strength to fight back. This weakling had been very brave before. Chen Yerui was confident in himself, claiming that defeating 10 more weaklings like this would not be difficult for him. He was so confident that he did not even doubt his victory. Yuerui, being an idiot, did not realize that if Min Ye and Huiming were not in danger, he would have torn him to pieces long ago without giving him a chance to win. It would have been a real rout. The fifth prince said that Yue Sheng was a weakling who couldn't even train properly. He strongly advised Yue Sheng to devote more time to training before such a fight. At this time, someone approached Yue Rui and told him that he should stay where he was. When he turned around, he saw Min Ye standing in front of him with a serious expression. Yue Rui was indignant, asking who this arrogant person was, who dared to call him by his name, and who even dared to treat him like that, not deserving even the slightest respect. Min Ye finally returned, and Yue Sheng was happy, thinking that they were okay since they returned safely. He felt relieved that everything went without any major problems. Min Ye raised her hand to indicate that everything was going according to plan, which reassured Yue Sheng. He was more at ease knowing that the situation was under control and they were on the right track. Chen Huiming declared that he had come to fight the fifth prince. He was serious and was willing to show his strength in battle, regardless of the possible consequences. Yuerui couldn't understand what kind of absurdity was going on, thinking that Huiming was a pathetic cockroach trying to challenge him to a duel. He was sure that this was just a stupid prank. Huiming noticed that everyone could now see how scared his elder brother was, and he was actually a coward. Huiming enjoyed the moment when his enemy surrendered. The fifth prince, very angry, asked if Huiming really wanted to die. He was so confident of his victory, he did not expect such a challenge, and was prepared for aggression. Huiming took out a huge firecracker that was similar to the one the fifth prince himself had used against him. This weapon looked terrifying and was ready to strike. Yuerui immediately began to speak, accusing Huiming of being mean for challenging him to a one-on-one fight. He was so irritated that he could hardly contain his emotions. The boy couldn't understand where Huiming got the fireworks from, but Huiming threw one of them at him with a smile, causing a flash. Yuerui was stunned, not expecting such a turn of events. Huiming admitted to being a scoundrel, but he didn't see it as a problem. His actions hadn't changed, and he wasn't going to stop there, despite the accusations. After this, the fifth prince fell to the ground, and his friends rushed to lift him up, trying to find out how he was feeling and what had happened, trying to help him. Yuerui continued to call him a stinking cockroach, not understanding how he dared to humiliate him. He ordered his friends to beat the crap out of him without wasting time on talking. Huiming was prepared for their attacks and had already taken out a lot of fireworks. He said that they could attack and was ready to meet their attack, confident of his victory. Huiming didn't know when he had managed to light all the fireworks or where he had gotten so many of them from. He continued to act, not wasting time thinking about what was happening. Everyone started to panic and run away because the fireworks were really dangerous and were about to explode. The fifth prince thought that they were just traitors who abandoned him. The younger brother approached Yue Sheng, and his words left no room for doubt. He wanted him dead. This unexpected act shocked everyone who was nearby. Yuerui tried to persuade the sixth prince not to do this, but the sixth prince would not listen, and immediately began to attack him with fireworks. The response was immediate and brutal. Yuerui felt a lot of pain. His screams pierced the air, but unfortunately, no one came to his aid. He was alone, and no one tried to protect him. Huiming realized at this moment that he felt something unusual and pleasant. He realized that he might want to repeat this act again and again. Yuerui couldn't accept what was happening. He started to run away, promising to tell his mother everything. He was sure that now his life would be over. Min Ye walked up to Yue Sheng, trying to figure out how he managed to beat up his brother so badly. She was stunned by what was happening, not knowing what to think. The guy explained to her that her bewilderment was groundless. He couldn't add problems to their already difficult situation, and her older brother asked her to keep everything a secret. Huiming, addressing Yue Sheng, praised him for his fortitude. He acknowledged that the prince had indeed endured a lot and was truly amazed by his endurance. However, Yue Sheng reassured him, saying that nothing terrible had happened. Quarrels between them were common, and even revenge for his offense brought him satisfaction. The concubine wrote down everything that happened, and her thoughts were full of doubts. She could not understand what these people were doing, and she thought that her dog was much more useful. This eunuch had no choice but to ask her for help. He declared that the old slave who had betrayed her trust deserved punishment and immediate death. The concubine was disappointed with the situation. Even with the help of the bastard from Langun, they could not cope, and she knew that now she would have to take matters into her own hands. Soon, a man came running to her with photographs telling her that she had to stand up for her son. He was desperate, and she could not leave him without support. She immediately hugged him and began asking him what had happened. Her voice was full of excitement, and she was looking for answers to the questions that were tormenting her. He said that Huiming almost destroyed him with fireworks. He almost flew into the air, feeling extreme pain. He could not believe what happened to him. The woman could not contain her anger. She exclaimed that this was madness and could not believe that someone would dare to treat her son so cruelly. Determined to act decisively, she made a decision. This time, the sixth prince would not go unpunished, and she was going to do everything to punish him. Yuerui reminded her at school not to let him escape. He knew that his fate now depended on how she acted. The concubine was determined. She ordered to go to the school, taking the guards with her to end this conflict once and for all. At Tai Shui's school, Huiming was wondering whether concubine Jin would really arrive, or if she was already here. He didn't know exactly what was happening at the moment. He was right. The concubine had already arrived and was loudly shouting his name, calling him to her. Her voice resonated in the air, and Huiming was nervous, waiting for how everything would unfold. When the boy saw her, he felt relieved. However, the woman immediately began to reproach him, asking how he dared to harm her son. She was completely outraged. Huiming was not only the elder brother, but also the emperor's son, holding the title of prince. His status far exceeded that of any lowly born such as that man from Lengong. The guy just laughed at her, claims mocked her, and even tried to tease her. He adopted this behavior from Yue Sheng, who always taught him how to behave in such situations. The woman was completely perplexed by such behavior. She could not understand how he could behave so defiantly and disrespectfully towards her son, who in her opinion deserved respect. She considered him a degenerate, a man who did not appreciate being treated well, so she decided to teach him a lesson so that he would understand his place in the world. She ordered her guards to immediately take action, demanding that they beat the crap out of Huiming. The boy, realizing that he could be punished, began to run away, trying to avoid trouble. The guards immediately rushed in pursuit. The woman gave orders not to let him go, but to catch up with him and not let him escape even a step. She could not let him go without consequences. Huiming knew that he had to follow his sister's instructions and began to run towards the nearest tree. He hoped that this would help him buy himself some time. He deftly climbed the tree and then, using its branches, quickly jumped over the fence and jumped off it to the other side. He knew that he had to act quickly to avoid being caught. However, everything that was happening seemed like a real curse. The guards were not leaving him alone, and so they decided to leave through the main exit to continue chasing the boy. Xingmu was sure that the Empress would come out through this exit, so they decided to wait for her here. Yue Sheng understood his hint and prepared for the next step. Yue Sheng, expecting Huiming to bring concubine Jin, was eagerly waiting for her to show up. They planned to anger her so that things would go their way. At this moment, Yue Sheng was the first to notice the approaching Empress. He immediately reported this to his elder brother so that he would be prepared for the next step. Xingmu was wary, realizing that the sixth prince and concubine, Jin, had not arrived yet. He knew that something must have gone wrong, and their plan might be disrupted. He immediately reported that they had not arrived yet, so they needed to somehow delay the Empress to prevent unforeseen consequences. Time was at a premium. Yue Sheng thought about what he could do to delay the Empress for at least a few minutes. He quickly came up with a plan that could help them in this situation. Suddenly, Yue Sheng fell right in front of the Empress's carriage. He began to complain that he was in great pain, hoping that this would distract her attention and keep her there for at least a little while. The Empress noticed that her carriage had stopped, and, curious, decided to find out the reason. She did not understand what had happened and wanted to know what was going on. The maid explained that this was the prince's second son who had fallen right in front of their carriage. The Empress ordered that his condition be checked immediately to find out what had happened to him. The Empress ordered the maids to immediately examine the boy and find out what was wrong with him. She could not ignore such a situation, even if it was unexpected. The maid came to Yue Sheng and began to inquire if he was okay, trying to understand what his problem was. She noticed that his complexion was unhealthy. Yue Sheng replied that he was very ill, he could barely speak, and that he was in great pain. He complained of pain to create the right impression. However, the boy noticed that his brother was giving him a sign as if he had a stomach ache. Yue Sheng decided to continue the game and began to complain of even more severe pain in order to continue the delay. He said he was so hungry that he was getting dizzy and he couldn't go any further. He was trying to make sure they kept holding him up. The Empress understood what was going on and ordered some cakes to be brought to him. She believed that this would ease his condition and perhaps help him recover. Yue Sheng was delighted by the delicious cakes they brought him. He savored every bite, knowing that the Empress would decide what was best for him, and they would be able to continue on their way. The maid thought he was feeling better, and seeing that he looked better, she suggested that he get up and continue on his way. She thought that his condition had returned to normal. However, Yue Sheng, continuing to play his role, said that he was still hungry and wanted more cakes. He tried to look as if he could not get enough. Yu Sheng was shocked by how many cakes were brought to him, and even surprised that all of them were intended for him. He did not expect the situation to turn out so well. Min Ye noticed that the sixth prince had not arrived yet. She began to suspect that concubine Jin might have already caught him, which would complicate the rest of the story. But soon she saw the prince running towards them, shouting her name. This calmed her down a little, because now it seemed that the situation was taking its usual course again. He ran up, complaining that he had been running non-stop and was very tired. Min Ye calmed him down, saying that he was doing well, but they found themselves surrounded by guards. The guards surrounded them, not giving them a chance to escape. At that moment, the concubine looked out of her carriage and said that he would not be able to leave, since everything was under control. Xing Mu, seeing that everything was going according to plan, was glad that they had reached their destination. The guards were already here, and the situation was becoming increasingly tense. The maid, noticing that Yue Sheng's complexion had changed again, asked if he was okay, as he looked unwell. She thought that he should stop eating. But Yue Sheng insisted that he was still hungry and kept asking for more food. Xing Mu, realizing that it was time to move on, reminded him that the Empress needed to go to the Buddhist temple. Yu Sheng was pleased that he was finally able to get his fill and continued to enjoy his victory. He was glad that he managed to avoid unnecessary troubles. Xing Mu, apologizing for the inconvenience, noted that the Empress Dowager had been very kind, and that they would not detain her any longer.